Welcome back everyone to GCN's live coverage of the ZRL Premier Division. 6 weeks of all-out racing comes down to this, the finale, and what a course we've got in store to finish things off. Let's take a good old look at today's course with Dan, because it's got a bit of everything.
It's the countryside tour on the Makuri Islands, and we've got a summit finish on our hands. 2.5 laps of a 16-kilometre circuit give a total distance of just over 43 kilometres and a total elevation gain of 552 metres. There are 2 intermediate KOM locations on each lap where the feather, anvil and draft power-ups will be available, and then the summit finish is a top temple climb. That's 2.5 k's long with an average gradient of 3.6%, but a max of 11. The climbers will be able to strut their stuff here, but with points to be gained at the intermediate points throughout the race, it will be interesting to see what type of riders each team fields on the day.
Well, welcome back to Hannah Walker. Hannah, it's been quite the series so far. I mean, in terms of parcours, we've had a lot, and now we've got gravel. How's that going to affect the racing?
It's great to have that difference, isn't it, of the different rounds each week, and the gravel sector today is certainly had a lot of talking points between the riders, the teams, those watching from afar, you know, the fan base as well, because this is the first time that we will expect that riders will make a bike change, perhaps in the middle of the race for the between the road bike and a gravel bike. So that's going to be incredibly exciting. Also with the Steamroller Power-Up too.
So how much of a difference will that bike change potentially make?
It's actually quite exceptional, the amount of difference. If on average, if you're riding at 4 watts per kilogram, you could save around 25-26 seconds. So if you imagine that over your rivals, that's a huge difference. The change though has got to be very slick. You've got to be at a complete standstill, putting out 0 watts. So you've got to make sure that the precision is correct. You want to make sure that you've practiced it beforehand as well.
Yeah, and crucially there, you have to do it yourself, mid-race, heart pumping, and you have to do that. It's not like you can invite a friend in or a partner to do this for you. You have to press that button. And so it could take, I mean, for very slick people, somewhere around 6 to 7 seconds, I believe, but that's going some.
It is, and also when you think of the stress factor, if you're getting a little bit flustered, you want to make sure that you get it right on the night. There's a lot at stake tonight for these riders. The final round of the ZRL, you've got the team overall title on offer. Riders also want to take the individual victory. You want to make sure that everything goes right on the night, and as you say, if you get it right, it could be 6 or 7 seconds. If you get it wrong, you could be looking at something like 20, 25, 30 seconds, by which point you've lost all the advantage that the gravel bike change makes.
And that's, of course, assuming other people do it with you. If you find yourself on your own, you could lose a lot more time. And you touched on the power-ups. So we've got the Steamroller Power-Up this week. Can you talk us through the 3 power-ups on offer this week?
Yeah, as this is the first time that we'll see the Steamroller increases that rolling resistance. We also have the featherweight and we have the draft, which those 2 power-ups, they're renowned in Zwift. They've been in-game since the beginning.
Yeah, well now we'll take a look at the series standing ahead of the women's race. The Canyon Esports team took a storming win last week, but it's the Heino team that have a commanding lead coming into this final round. So, Hannah, are we going to see more aggressive tactics from the teams fighting for glory at the top, but also, I guess, near the back of that as they try to avoid that relegation? I
think we are. I think both in the men's and women's race, we're going to see a race of 2 halves, those who are wanting to try and fight the relegation zone, but also for those teams who are battling it out for the team victory or even just to get onto the podium. Because as you see, you know, sort of very close between Ionian Race Team and Canyon Esports, we could see a changeover there. If Heino have a terrible evening on the night, Canyon Esports could overtake the lead and go on to take the team victory over all of this season. So yeah, anything's possible, anything can happen, we do know.
Yeah, well, we obviously mentioned the Canyon Esports team with their heroic efforts last week. Now let's hear a little bit from Mary Wilkinson after last week's race, who will certainly fancy her own chances on this week's course.
What do you think it's going to be? Do you think it's going to be fireworks from the get-go with 2 opportunities to score each lap in the sprint and the climbs?
I think it's been in all the other previous races. It really has started to split up quite early on. So I think there'll be a selection, and I think it'll come down to a relatively small front group on that final climb for battling out for the win.
As you say, the final really suits you. Second at the British Hill Climb Championships on Win Its Pass just over a week ago. So you must be having your eyes on the individual victory, but also to try and elevate the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, we always go into it with a team plan. Obviously, individual points and wins are fantastic, but it really is all about the team. And for us to be sat there in second at the moment, we're going to go all in and try and push ourselves as close to Heino as we can.
Okay, the clock is counting down ahead of the women's start, so let's run through the final lineups for some of the prominent teams of the season at the end of the season here. So we've got Heino team, we've got Cecilia Hansen, Melanie Mora, Alice Lethbridge, Vicky Whitelaw and Vicky Nealon. And then on the Canyon Esports team, we have Caroline Williams, Mary Wilkinson, Bexy Dew, Stephanie Sidlick and Kirstin Pohl. And then over on the Ionian team, we have Lily Swan, Daniela Istrate, Loz Adgist, Ariel Verharen and Moneli Keller. Well, how do you think this one's going to play out?
Well, as I said before, I think it's going to be a race of two halves. It's the first summit finish of any of the rounds during this season. So I think for some of those teams who are wanting to make sure that the team wins on the night, that it's going to be fast and furious, frantic from the beginning to try and take those points early on. But I do think the victory, the individual victory, might come from one of those teams who isn't vying for a team position on the night. I'm looking at riders such as Julia Shallow of Beast Mode Power by Rose, even Kristin Kochinski. We know her prowess on the climbs.
Brilliant. And in terms of teams, who do you put your money on? Wow,
well, I think with that buffer, Heino, I think they are going to take it overall and take their consecutive team victory overall of the ZRL.
And we mentioned about the teams at the back. What's going on there? Who's contending and trying to stay in the league?
Yeah, it's one of those where we have the 12 teams in the season so far. I think it's just about making sure that they can try and score points early on in the race, and once they have the points on the board early on, they've got points to score overall of the team standings.
Sure, so we've got the intermediate sprint and then the KOM, and obviously this is 2.7 laps, give or take. So there's quite a few opportunities for the athletes to gain those points throughout the race.
There is, and yeah, a lot of points on offer at those intermediates, on the intermediate sprints. Then you have the Queen of the Mountain, but also big points on offer at the finish line, which is going to be key for those riders to make sure, let's not forget, it's scoring all the way down to 30th position. So you might not be in the front group, but those lower positions further down, they are still key to that team position.
Well, we're moments away from the start of the women's race. It's time now to hand over to Matt Stevens and Hannah for the commentary.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mark. I cannot wait to see what unfolds today. So much to talk about in the longest race, the second hilliest race, but it's all about these different services. This is week 6, this is the final round, and we're back on Makuri Islands facing the Countryside Tour. We've got the draft, the feather and the steamroller for the very first time. 2.6 laps, 43.2 kilometers total distance, and there was the elevation gain of 552 meters. And we climb 3 times to up the temple climb, taking us into the finish on the mystical tree. And there we have a little look at parts of this climb. It averages only 3.5%, but that doesn't give you a proper insight because there's a plateau around halfway up this climb, which gives offers up, should I say, an opportunity for riders to rest a little bit before the road kicks up again. There are several pitches of 7, 8, 9, and even 10% near the top of the climb before it flattens out, and you can just see the finish there, right in the heart of the mystical tree. The first 2 times up this mystical climb, there'll be points for the Queen of the Mountains classification. There are also 3 sprints out on the circuit, the first of which takes place after only 5 kilometres. And I do believe the riders are well underway. Hannah is readying herself in the comms booth. But interesting, I'm just going to try and have a look at some of these bikes because the riders, as we talked about on the sofa, or as Hannah talked about on the sofa, there are opportunities on a course like this for riders to switch bikes. Now, we do have information down on the ground that a couple of teams chose gravel bikes, but we'll see if that plays out at the moment. Gravel bikes far more efficient on the road surface, or the gravel, should I say, to the climb. And actually, there's a descent of around 1.5 kilometres before you head back into the market town of gravel as well. So in total, we're looking at around 9 or 10 kilometres of gravel. And I can indeed see Hannah in her booth with her headphones on, a little bit of an energy drink on board as well. She's always very, very busy indeed. But Hannah, great to have you alongside me again for today's race. There's so much to talk about here. It's a wonderful course, one of my favourite routes on Zwift. I really do love Makuri Islands, but this circuit in particular, testing because of the elevation. We've got those sprints in the mix as well, but it's the bike change one and this new Steamroller Power-Up that we've never seen before in a race that are going to provide us with lots of different variables here, so it should be fascinating.
It certainly will. The run into today's course is what we saw in round one, the opening round of the ZRL on the Flatlands loop. So riders will be familiar with the start of this loop, but again, as we mentioned on the sofa with Mark, this is our first summit finish as well, Matt. So incredibly exciting. The final round, so for teams lower down, wanting to make sure that they put some points on the board early on. Riders wanting to make sure that they're as efficient as possible as always, but more so today because there's a lot at stake in this final round, with the team wanting to be crowned the champions at the end of this season.
Well, we are looking at Kristin Kochinski there, one of the most intriguing riders out on the circuit, one of the strongest as well, just gets better and better and better, and we understand she's riding on a gravel bike at the moment. That is the option that she's taken, and there she is, kicking out a very casual 4.4 watts a kilo. We understand from our colleague Dave Towell, who's actually informing us, Hannah, that she's put out her best ever 5-minute power recently. Just shows that Kochinski is getting better and better, and she's one of your tips, isn't she, for the win today, given that we do have that hilltop finish as well. But interestingly, she's on a gravel bike.
Yeah, she is, and I guess for Kochinski, perhaps doesn't want the stress of making the bike change between the road bike or the gravel bike, and I think that's a huge thing that riders have been thinking about, talking about, assessing which is the better option for today's race, whether to make a bike change, whether to stay with one or the other, and kind of just deal with the bike that they've got, and sort of take the positives and negatives between each. And for Kochinski, as you mentioned, on the gravel bike already, I think just taking that stress element away from a rider and the extra energy that you could expend because of the thinking factor, as we mentioned before as well, every rider has to do the bike change manually.
They certainly do. Well, we understand from information on the ground that the whole of the Ionian team, all of the Ionian team, we're looking at Lewis Adihis, really has had a solid season. She's actually riding on a road bike, so this particular section is going to be far easier for anybody choosing a road bike. You have to put out a little bit more power traveling at this speed if you're riding on a gravel bike or even a mountain bike, but nobody's choosing a mountain bike today, so it is going to be best to just sit in the wheels. But we've got that sprint coming up, so you do wonder how Iona are going to play this one. Are they going to try and mop up points early on, because there's more points on offer for the sprints, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, than the climb. So it's quite an interesting tactic. They're at an energy saving advantage, but quite clearly when this sprint opens up, and it will come around very, very quickly, they're going to be at a big advantage. So it does suggest that that's the game they're going to play. But then are they going to swap back, or not swap back, or swap to gravel bikes for the climb? There's so much to try and comprehend and process here, isn't there?
There is, and I think and we see the first time, Matt, the steamroller being used as a power-up in game. It's an event-only power-up. It's Steph Clutterbuck who are using that power-up there from the Movistar team. She's still within the peloton at the moment. You just see that purple icon above the riders there.
Well, that's an interesting one. Basically, and I know you explained it. It's worth explaining again. With the power-ups randomly generated every time we go through the finish arch, the Queen of the Mountains arch, and the sprint arch. But the Steamroller basically reduces the rolling resistance for 30 seconds. But if you're riding on a gravel bike, for example, it basically gives you a similar rolling resistance, or pretty much the same as you would on a road bike. And so if you're on the flat, on a normal road surface, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. So anybody on a gravel bike on this particular surface, that brings them back for 30 seconds, because this opening 5 sections for people on gravel bikes is going to be a lot harder, isn't it? And that's one of the things they're really going to have to thought about.
They do, and it comes down to that thought, that chat that they've had between their teammates, their sports director, there's managers, as well as to which bike they go for, what they opt for. Do they risk it all and make a bike change during the race? And perhaps you could effectively lose a lot of time if it goes wrong, in which case it puts you completely out of the race. You find yourself chasing, or do you commit to one bike and sort of suffer the consequences of in the terms of you're not saving as much energy on this road sector. If you're on a gravel bike, if you're on the road bike and you fully commit to that for the whole race, then you're not getting the benefits that you do of a gravel bike. So there's so many different aspects, and I think this is why I love what we've got for this final round, Matt.
Indeed. Well, we've got the first sprint coming up. I did say it was a come up very, very fast indeed. We hit it at just over 5Ks because we had that little run in. It's a completely flat sprint. They can see it for a while, just on a bend. A lot of power-ups being dropped here. The draft power-up being used, which of course increases your draft benefit by 30 seconds. The sprint is being opened up there. It is on the left-hand side now. Pia Kuma of Beast Mode powered by Rose in second place. But Beth Makiva takes to the front. But it looks like 2024 are going to take this one. Looks like Shayna Paulus takes that one, using that draft power-up to very, very good effect. And that's quite interesting, because we understand that 2024 are all using gravel bikes. That's information we got on the ground. So for Paulus to take that sprint on a gravel bike, given the added rolling resistance, that's something pretty special. She's clearly on a good day, but Paulus takes that from Makiva. Then we have Roberts, Embring and Biarhead. Well, that's the first sprint over and done with. Lots of points there done, but well, great to see. Well, an indicator of how well Paulus is riding there. Perfect timing, and perhaps offset the fact she's riding on a gravel bike by using that draft power-up just at the right time.
Yeah, definitely. And you saw a lot of power-ups, the draft power-ups being used in-game just then in the race. For Paulus, we talk about riders coming into form. For me, Paulus, week on week, has got stronger and stronger. You see her more prominent week in, week out, and I think it's fantastic to see. They've obviously come into this knowing what a superb sprinter Paulus is, that perhaps she's going to commit fully to the intermediate sprints. Then they have Kochinski and Paige Peters, Charlotte Bacchus, Naomi de Pennington for the climbing sector. So tonight it's not only the bike changes you have to think about, the parkour, but also the lineup of riders, because it's not necessarily all about an out-and-out climber for your roster. It's not about all the sprinters. It's having a mix of rouleurs, puncher riders who can sort of go with all the types of moves.
We understand Shayna Paulus is back onto a road bike there. Of course, IRL, they're not actually going to change bikes on the trainer that they're on, of course. They only change that in game, but we do understand that Paulus is on a road bike right now as we just head through Village Onsen. Next up will be the fishing village, and then we will swing left in a couple of K's time, about 2 or 3 kilometers time, and then we'll head up the climb of the temple. Just a reminder, on the situation in relation to the standings. Heino lead, but they've only got a 5-point advantage over Canyon Esports. Ioni lie third with 90 points, and then Team 2024, by the way they're riding tonight, I know that they would desperately try and finish on the podium here. And when you compare this season so far to the previous seasons, they've been dominated by Heino. Although they're leading the rankings, if they have one bad night, if they don't quite get it right today, although that's probably a slim possibility, this could all change. So at the top, Hannah, it really is quite finely balanced. So what you were saying about the team making sure they play to their strengths, use their resource at the right points of the course, get points, use the sprint, and then use your climbers for the finale, that I think is going to come into play, because this isn't a done deal just yet, is it?
It certainly isn't. It's only over once you cross the finish line, it's a cliche, isn't it? But it's true, because especially with so many elements to tonight's race, anything can happen. Making sure that you have strength in numbers come the finish line. We know if a rider has a technical problem, perhaps mentally, or even sort of fatigue starting to set in for the riders, miss one of the key moves. If we see that on the second lap, the pace is fast and ferocious still, you've gone through the intermediate sprints, the pace doesn't let up, and once we start to make this climbing sector, it doesn't look too much at the moment, but you see the undulation, almost a roller coaster type road, with the change in gradient from 4% down to 3%, it sort of increases again and then back down to 0.
Well, that's just that great shot of Julia Shallow. She's been a really, really exciting rider this season. Good shot of her cave there. All her bikes mounted on the wall as well. Nice fan set up for Julia Shallow. And she is on a road bike, we understand, in game at the moment. And she is the fastest ever rider in the Premier League on this particular circuit. So she rode a 23.22 at around just over 300 watts. Very, very quick. In fact, only 18 seconds slower than the fastest male around this circuit. Just shows how strong Julia Shallow is. And the team have really, really impressed. But she's just sat midway through the pack at the moment. Vicky Nealon is the rider just on the front, just heading over the boardwalk here, just through the fishing village, and the climb soon will be on their left-hand side. And you're quite right, this climb isn't a simple one at all. When you look at 3.5%, well, it's almost just a drag. You'll be sat in the wheels a lot, but with the added fact that it will be moving slower because it's on gravel, and the fact that it's very, very hard to get into a rhythm. There's flat bits, there's even a slight downhill, but there are maximum gradients as well, little hairpin bends of 9 or 10%. I would say it's one of the most complicated climbs to get into a rhythm on, to try and get right.
It certainly is, and as you say, getting into that rhythm is the key words here, because for some riders, they really excel when they can get into a rhythm on a climb. You have this false flat for around 1.5 kilometers, and the steeper gradients come towards the back end of the climb, and we see maximum gradients of upwards of 10-11%, so incredibly hard to get right. Making sure that your positioning is right as well, and as you said before, the difference when you're riding on the gravel and your rolling resistance, it certainly is a hard one to get right, but then making sure that you're in a good position over the top of the climb, on the descent. If you see some riders that we've seen over the last couple of weeks when we're on the descents, riders pushing on, trying to split that group, making it difficult for any rider to get back into the group.
Yep, so getting some more information about what riders on Beth McKeever we're looking at the moment. Had a great season so far as Beth McKeever from Movistar, transferred across in the off-season. We're now on the foot slopes of the climb. It starts off very, very gradually indeed, but this is the gravel section. You can really feel it. I've tried the gravel bikes and even mountain biking on this on these sorts of sections, then compare it to a road bike, and I can tell you there is a real difference. At my level, maybe not as much as at this level, but there's a definite difference in getting the bike right, the bike choice right, especially at this level. And I think this brings a wonderful element to it, because we know this is all about fitness, but racing on Zwift at this sort of level, it's about the gamification too, and that is what makes this new sport, this exciting sport, stand alone, isn't it? It's the complex nuances of understanding the in-game dynamics that really bring this alive.
And where else could you do this? I mean, I love this aspect that you have to be an all-round rider, an all-round team. You can't just rely, as you say, on your fitness. You can't just rely on your climbers, your sprinters. You have to make these decisions beforehand, and in terms of what bike you're going to ride, which whether you're going to stick with it for the whole game, where you're going to be, how you're going to race it in terms of the tactics and the nuances. So this is what I love, and the part of it where you can cross over between half the course is road, half of it is gravel. I mean, it's just wonderful, isn't it?
It certainly is. Well, Kochinski, we thought she might be aggressive, and she's gone away. We know in game she's chosen to ride on the gravel bike, and she is moving clear now, well clear. In fact, she's already got a couple of seconds lead. There is the draft just behind her, and she's essentially, nobody's getting the benefit of that draft. Look at that, out of the saddle. 73 RPM, 61 ride-ons for the American rider who's been so popular. This is a bold effort. I don't know if she'll be able to stay away all day, but what she is doing in the process is ripping this field apart. Clearly a good use of the gravel bike on this section, and she's just trying to do the best she can to split this field, because this is a long, long climb. It's around a 5 or 6 minute effort. I didn't expect Kochinski to go so early, but she's such an unpredictable rider, but an exciting one at the same time.
Yeah, such an audacious move here from Kochinski, and you just saw her with another acceleration of power once she got to that 10% gradient sector of the road. And Julia Schallau, the rider who is trying to chase her down from beast mode power by roads, the German rider who has been so prominent in this year's ZRL Premier Division, she's trying to bridge that gap, but that initial explosive power from Kochinski was so impressive. And as I said, it's so audacious to go so early on in this race.
It certainly is. Well, this is really splitting things up. We knew this would be a tough race because of the elevation, because of the nuanced elements of this, of riding on the gravel or on the dirt up this climb. But Schallau is chasing, but she's got 9 seconds to make up. Just looking a little bit further down the field already, we hit the bottom of the climb with 46 riders in the main pack. A few had been dropped after that sprint, but now the field is split over 58 seconds. There's riders all over the road. Even Vicky Nealon, 26th place. She's at 22 seconds behind the American. This is a quite amazing move by Kristin Kochinski. Still 9 seconds ahead of Julia Schallau. Third on the road at the moment for 2024 is Paige Peters. Caroline Williams from Canyon Esports, who we understand has chosen a gravel bike as well. As are now into the four. So let's look at Kochinski. She's heading towards the top of this climb here. Well, she's just gone to underneath the Flamme Rouge, and there's another very, very steep section to come. It's a cruel, cruel climb, although the last couple of 100 meters into the center of the mystical tree are absolutely flat. But this looks like at the moment as if it's a lone TT from Kochinski. This isn't just to take points at the top of this climb. It doesn't look like that to me. This looks like a big, bold, and to use your words, audacious move.
It certainly is. Caroline Williams, she's sensing that danger. And at the moment, when you look down at where the riders are, because straight away it strung things out. Riders were in one long line where we saw many riders begin to be in danger, be in difficulty. You see Schallau using that steamroller. We saw Caroline Williams using the steamroller to get to the wheel of Schallau. So at the moment, it is Caroline Williams and Julia Schallau who are trying to pursue and chase down the American rider Kristin Kochinski, and at the moment the gap has been slashed to 3.8 seconds to Julia Schallau to Kristin Kochinski.
Well, that was because of the use of that power-up. We know how strong she is. This is that you just saw. It's gone back to 9%, just at the bottom of this little hairpin here as we head to the top of the climb in about 300-400 meters time. Schallau using that power up, and she really did quite emphatically shut that gap down, but now it's going back out again. It just shows if you use that steamroller power up just at the right time, it definitely will help you, and it's helped her cut that gap in half. And this is where the road flattens now. It flattens all the way in to the center of the mystical tree, but Kochinski is going to be first rider home. But still 2 complete laps to go. This is a very, very long race indeed. There's the banner. We're in the middle of this quite marvelous natural bit of land, and Kochinski just crosses through the top. A little fox on the left-hand side there, having a bit of a watch over proceedings. But Kochinski is moving clear here. But what would be a good situation here, although Kochinski loves to ride solo, is to perhaps knock it off and wait for Schallau, because they've got 15 seconds over the third rider. And what a formidable duo Schallau and Kochinski could form.
Best interest, wouldn't it, if those two riders could get together, because with those two teams, they'll have their eyes set on an individual victory. And what Kochinski is doing is she's actually causing upset to the teams. Overall, Heino, Canyon Esports, as we see the points through that Queen of the Mountain, the Temple Queen of the Mountain. Kochinski, of course, taking maximum points. Schallau with the 3. Caroline Williams of Canyon Esports adding 2. And Beth McKeever, the rider, Scottish rider from Movistar, taking the sole point.
Well, an amazing ride here. Kochinski still holding that 5-second gap over Julia Schallau. There's the situation on the night so far in relation to points attained. 2024 have 16. Team Swedish Zwifters with 11, solid by them. Movistar with 9, ATP Racing, Venom with 6, and Beast Mode Powered by Road also with 6 points. And there's the gap to the Makuri group. Now 12 seconds. Clearly that group with Beth McKeever, should I say, they're actually closing ever so slightly, but it really is splitting up. Look at the top 10. They're spread over 18 seconds. Kochinski on her own, Shallow at 6.5. Then we have Williams and McKeever in that little chase group. Adegist on her own. And then we have a big group of riders just behind. I'm wondering, Hannah, if this was a plan by Kochinski to go clear to take the points, or whether she just thought, you know what, I'm going to time trial this and make this race my own and put everybody else on the back foot. But we know she's on a gravel bike up the climb, but she'll definitely lose out unless she changes bikes once she gets back onto the road surface through the descent in the marketplace here, which they get back onto the road in around 700 meters time.
Yeah, really interesting to see if she will do that, because she does have that buffer. Will she want to risk it with that stress element, that stress factor of having to make the bike change, or will she just fully commit to this move? Really interesting at the moment. And as we've seen both in esports, IRL, on the road, riders, they're taking up the races much earlier on. They're not waiting until the final few kilometers to try and make a move. They go in full commitment from the beginning, taking a lot of riders, a lot of teams by surprise. As Kochinski, she's back onto the smooth tarmac, and I tell you what, that'll feel nice after that gravel.
It certainly will. Well, there's lots going on behind. Beth McKeever, they're leading that group. You could just see there, rider number 4, Vicky Whitelaw, using the Steamroller Power-Up. As another rider got into a little bit of a super tuck. This is a small group behind. This contains Melanie Mora, Caroline Williams, Alice Lethbridge, Ariel Verharen, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw and Caroline Williams. Julia Shallow has been absorbed by that group, which are now 8 seconds behind Kristin Kochinski. So the German rider that was in between Kochinski and that chase group has now been absorbed. There she is, moving to the front. Now the big question is, can Kristin Kochinski hold this group off on for the rest of this circuit? That would be something very impressive. We've never seen anything like it at all. No wonder, Hannah, Kristin Kochinski has got 106 ride-ons, because she fully deserves every single one of those.
She's animating the races week in, week out. She's got so many fans, as you can see from the amount of ride-ons, but I think riders, those watching, are almost in awe of what she's able to do. She's always animating, she's always aggressive, which is, it's just so impressive to see. And for Kochinski, she never likes to hold back. She's still out of the saddle mat.
Yep, sorry, yeah, she's just out of the saddle there. It looks like she's going to be caught here. She looks so composed, though, out of the saddle, giving an insight into how much power she's putting out. Look at that, 6.9 watts a kilo, but she has been absorbed. She needs to be a little bit careful. She needs to make sure she gets back in those wheels, because if she's still on a gravel bike, and I believe she is, it's going to be a little bit harder to actually stay in the wheels here. So no more time on the front for her. She needs to sit in those wheels, and it will come at a bit of a cost staying on a gravel bike if others are on road bikes here. But what we can see there, she's settled into that group quite nicely, and we have a little bit of settling down again. So it's about recuperating, because regardless of the class of Kochinski, being out in front for that long so early is going to take its toll. She now needs to compose herself and think about the rest of the race.
Especially with a rather large group coming up behind her, and all sort of working well together, using the draft off each other. If you want to try and take a look at the difference between the road bikes and the gravel bikes, perfect opportunity there. You can see the different handlebar style of the gravel bike between the road bikes. The gravel bike almost having a double top part of the handlebar. That's how you can try and tell the difference of which bike riders have opted for.
Yeah, we know it does give us a little bit more insight. Well, it's easier to identify, should I say. Verharen there, from the United States of America. It's a Dutch name. She pronounced it Verharen. She is actually on a road bike at the moment, so she'll be at a little bit of an advantage in terms of the energy expended within this group. So if I was on a gravel bike in this group, I'd be really, really mindful of responding to things and making sure you didn't spend any time on the front here, Hannah. This is where you need to be very, very smart. And that's actually harder to do in such a small group, because just as a reminder, we've only got 12 riders in the front. Wilkinson, Hansen, Verhaeren, Shallow, Whitelaw, Kochinski, Adderhaste, Shallow and Lethbridge. That is the composition of the front group. And there's a massive chasmic gap through to the next rider on the road. That's Paige Peters at 30 seconds. She's on her own. Then we have a big group of riders led by Natalie Stevenson of Cryo at 36 seconds. And I don't think, looking at what we've got here, looking at the real class and the composition of this group, Hannah, that anybody else is going to get in contact.
The key indicator from this group, if you're wanting to try and save energy, if you're wanting to be efficient, is be patient and not be so keen to be at the front. Try and just follow those wheels, sit in the wheels, use that draft, because as you just said, the group behind now 32 seconds adrift. You do have the option to not take it on at the front, to be patient, to just fully commit to making sure that you don't put your nose in the wind. And it's almost an art to be able to do, because riders, they want to be involved, they want to be up towards the front, and having that that element of your riding style to be patient and try and keep yourself almost anonymous is a real skill in itself.
Well, Lethbridge there, number 3. You can just see that little marker there. She is on a gravel bike at the moment. So just rolling through to the front. It looks as if things have dropped a little bit here. They know how hard this course is, and they also know how strong, in particular, Kristin Kochinski is. But Kochinski, critically, is the only rider in this front group from 2024. And the team, unsurprisingly, with 4 riders in this front group, is the team that is leading the overall rankings heading into this final race of this season, and that is Heino. They have Cecilia Hansen, Melanie Mora, Alice Lethbridge and Vicky Whitelaw. They are so consistent. And interestingly, they opted for gravel bikes early on, and it seems so far, Hannah, that has played dividends.
It has for that team. I mean, a mix of options between all of the riders. Lethbridge there with the gravel bike. We can see a couple more of her teammates. They are still on the Scott road bikes. So different choices between the riders, and I think that's the beauty of it, that riders have their own preference, their own choice. They can make their own decisions of what kind of bike they want to ride, what suits them as a rider, whether they're willing to risk to change the bikes. As we see a rider there from Heino, that's Melanie Maurer on the normal road bike at the moment, as opposed to, you see Stephanie Sidlick, I think it is, there with the road bike as well. Her teammate Mary Wilkinson looks like she's opted for the gravel bike just towards the back of the group there.
Yeah, we've got. It's really interesting to see the riders that have opted for one bike or another, because I don't think, from what we've seen so far, or we certainly didn't identify on the road, I don't think anybody's going to change bikes. That's too much of a risk. We know even if you do it really, really quickly, and you've got particularly nimble fingers with your heart rate at threshold, covered in sweat as well, and you can't get anybody else to do that for you, you're looking at around between 10 and 20 seconds. Certainly would probably take me about 30, 40 seconds, but it looks as if we're set fair now. So 12 riders in this front group, and I'll remind you of the riders that they are. We're coming up to the second sprint of the day very, very shortly, but we've got 4 riders from Heino in there. Cecilia Hansen, Melanie Mora, Alice Lethbridge and Vicky Whitelaw. 1 representative from Movistar E-Team, that is Beth McKeever. 3 from Canyon Esports. Very solid evening so far for that team. Caroline Williams, Mary Wilkinson, Stephanie Sidlick, who's on a road bike, by the way. Kristin Kochinski, early attacker and one of the most exciting riders out there. She's on a gravel bike. She's representing 2024. 2 from the Ionian race team in the form of Lust Hadehist and Ariel Verhaeren. Verhaeren, we understand, is on a road bike. And then the only representative from Beast Mode, powered by Rose, after that long chase to try and get on terms with Kristin Kochinski, riding on a road bike, is Julia Shallow of Beast Mode, powered by Rose. So with such a small group, Hannah, they're going to be really, really mindful of the riders in this group. They'll all know each other very well. They'll know their strengths. They'll know their weaknesses. They'll also be aware, because all these teams are in communication, what bikes riders are on. There's so many different factors that will determine how the riders now play out this next 23.5 kilometres. I cannot wait to see how this group rides this race.
It's such a thriller, isn't it? And it's almost that added layer as well of once if a team makes one mistake, another team can capitalise on that. And we've got two very different objectives within this group, I would say, Matt, that as you just mentioned, Kristin Kochinski, Julia Shallow, they're sole representatives from their respective teams of 2024 and Beast Mode Powered by Rose. Their whole ambition for today will be to try and take the individual victory, whereas you see the strength in numbers that Heino have, that Canyon Esports have. They will be looking to try and capitalise and make sure that they try and win the team overall on the night. Even Ionian Race Team with two riders there, they'll want to try and do something to score the big numbers come the finish line. And I think the key point is for all of these riders, because it's very evenly matched almost in this group, is the intermediates are going to be very hotly contested across the intermediate sprints and the Queen of the Mountain points.
Yeah, they certainly are. They certainly are. It is going to be absolutely intriguing here. And you have to think that Kochinski, without any teammates in there, remember 2024, of course, the overall is very, very important indeed. It doesn't look, what is going to play out quite certainly, as we can see Kochinski on the front there with that double handlebar setup, indicating she's on a gravel bike. We've got the sprint coming up very, very shortly indeed. Remember, lots of points on offer on the sprint: 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We've got a little draft power-up being dropped there. Makiva rolling through, 2 draft power-ups being used. Remember, increasing your draft benefit by 50% for 30 seconds as Makiva opens things up. Makiva looking very good. Look at that, kicking out 13 watts a kilo plus. She looks like she's going to take this one at an absolute canter. The Movistar E-Team rider takes the win there. And just in second place, it looks like it was Adhist. It was indeed. And then a flotilla of Heino riders. So Makiva, Adhist, Hansen, Lethbridge and Mora mopping up those points there. It's a good ride there by Beth Makiva as she slots back in to this group and going straight over the top there. Well, there's another attack by Julia Shallow here. So Shallow eager to try and get in front. Be interesting to see exactly what bike Shallow is on a road bike. So this is the thing here. Because of the differences of the bikes, and I don't think we are going to see anybody changing, although now I've said that, we probably will. A rider really has to try and make hay while the sun shines. So if you've got a road bike and you know you're at a big advantage, because riders on the gravel bikes have to use far more effort or more power to maintain the same speed, you're going to have to use the road to your advantage. But given the fact we finish on the gravel, it's a tough one to choose, but clearly the way we've seen the gravel bike equipped riders ripping up on that climb, it looks as if the advantage is definitely with the gravel riders at the moment.
Interestingly, we might not see a change on this lap, but perhaps the final lap. Let's not forget 2.5 kilometers of climbing on gravel to finish today's race.
Definitely where Shallow's going clear. We're going to have a look at this Makiva replay again. A real indication of how much punch she has got. Such an explosive rider, and there was no use for power up at all. But do remember that pretty much all of the Heino Racing team are on gravel bikes. So on a road bike with that sort of explosivity under the hood, Makiva takes it almost at a canter there. I say at a canter, she was kicking out 13.2 watts a kilo. But Shallow has now rolled clear. And this is really interesting. We know how strong she is. We know she's got the record on this circuit. And what she's clearly trying to do here, what it looks like, is build a bit of an advantage before she hits the gravel. And then she's at a little bit of a disadvantage. And what you will hope for is the fact that she's got a Steamroller Power-Up as well, which are randomly generated. She'll know what she's got. We can't see that at the moment, but she's doing a good job earning a little bit of a road before we hit that climb. She's got a gap now of 7 seconds. This is good tactics by Shallow.
Very, very good tactics that she can try and get this gap, and it will be interesting. I'm going to keep a close eye on what Shallow is going to do coming into this next time over the gravel. As I said before, 2.5 kilometers on gravel. If you're on the road bike, you're at a huge disadvantage in comparison to your rivals who are on the gravel bikes. And if Shallow can potentially maintain and continue to grow this lead that she has currently on the road sector, make a bike change. She'll have to come to a complete standstill, pushing out 0 watts to be able to make the bike change. And perhaps we will see that for the last move. But here again, this isn't part of the climbing sector or even the false flat, but already reaching gradients of upwards of 6%. So a real difficult part on the course here, but Shalau continuing to grow that gap 9.4 seconds currently, and continuing and maintaining 4.7 to 4.8 watts per kilo.
Well, this is a great bit of riding by Shallow. She's opted for the road bike. We don't know whether she's going to make a change or not, but if she did, what she will do immediately is wipe out all of that lead that she's built up here and could end up out of the back, because we're estimating, bear in mind these are only estimates, that a bike change, even a pretty efficient one, would take between 15 and 20 seconds. And the riders can't use any help. They can't use a bot to do that. They have to do that manually. And that's something that will be considered. So I think, although again, I stress I might be wrong, that Shalau is trying to build up a lead, maybe so she doesn't, well, not maybe, so she doesn't actually get dropped on this climb. It is absolutely fascinating, but she's doing a tremendous job. She's got 15 seconds now on the Caroline Williams-led group behind, and this is very good. And we saw what she did on the climb before. She was able to still hold second place on the climb on a road bike, so she's clearly in great form.
Incredible form, and just taking a look at the difference in effort between a rider who is in that chasing group, in that draft, in comparison to Shalau, who is on her own with no help whatsoever. 195 beats per minute, pushing over 250 watts, and still maintaining that 4.8 watts per kilogram. And you see with Kochinski, you have she's able to just maintain less than 200 watts, so making a huge saving at the moment. But the output and the expenditure of the German rider of Shalau from Beast Mode Power by Rose, this is really going to start to sting and hurt the legs now.
It certainly is. Well, she's built up a really healthy lead of 21 seconds. Remember, she was around 10 seconds behind on the climb before she used that Steamroller Power-Up and shut down 5 or 6 seconds on the previous lap to Kochinski. But remember as well, Julia Shalau, the solitary rider out on the front with daylight between her and the rest of this group. Well, now it looks like this group's getting quite tactical as well, because look at the different power. Clearly, Shalau out on her own, TT mode here. That's just the kind of power she can maintain, running at or around threshold. But Kochinski's power was only about 180 watts. So it suggests to me, and she's on a gravel bike as well, so that suggests to me that group are playing a real tactical game, and the gap continues to go out now. 25 seconds for Shalau. This is absolutely tremendous stuff. 78 power-ups, not power-ups, should I say, 78 ride-ons. Please, if you do have your Zwift Companion app to hand, give this rider some appreciation. Get involved in the comments on YouTube as well, because this is bold, brave riding. And that's why I do love these courses that mix this little bit of gravel at this level. Riders have got to make a decision, and clearly what they're doing, because they know the big amount of time it takes to swap bikes, they're making this decision and sticking to it. But saying that, with a 30-second lead, she could afford to change bikes now and increase her lead.
She certainly can. This is incredibly exciting, isn't it? And you see the group behind almost becoming stale, becoming stagnant. 32 seconds now as we take a look at the team points overall as we currently see it. 19 points for Movistar E-Team, 2024 courtesy of Shayna Palace and Kristin Kochinski, 16 points. Heino Racing locked on the same points as 2024. Team Swedish Swifters and Ionian Race Team also locked together with 11 points. ATP Racing Venom with the 6, along with Beast Mode Power by Rose, and Canyon Esports quite a way down with 4. So their challenge to Heino in the team standings overall, it's going to be a difficult one, Matt, because they need to try and add a few more points to their tally.
They do, especially with Heino Racing having 4 riders in the front. It's only Vicky Nealon who isn't in this front group, but Shalau, the gap is still going out. And remember, she's on a road bike. She's absolutely flying up this climb. She is at quite a big disadvantage choosing this road bike. But what she's done, she's been smart, and she's also been strong. She's built up that lead on the tarmac, and right now, incredibly, she's increasing it on this climb. 5 watts a kilo for the German rider on this steep section here. 6% on this climb that twists and turns. It ebbs and flows. There's a flat section midway through, then it kicks up again, and she hasn't even used a power up here, and the gap is staying the same. This is a quite remarkable ride by the German rider. Still a long way to go, though. 17.7 kilometres to go. There's where the road kicks up, and this is where it flattens ever so slightly. This is a remarkable performance, and the gap is continuing to go out here.
This is a remarkable ride. This is an absolutely incredible 39 seconds to the larger part of the group. 34 to Kochinski, who's trying to make a move to try and go in pursuit of this sole rider. These two riders have had a real battle over the last few weeks together. And take a look at the gradients now. She knows this is the move. 17.5 kilometers to go. Kochinski can sense that danger of the German rider Schellau, and she is on that gravel bike. You can see the gradient ever so slightly, just down to 2%, and the group behind, there's no reaction, Matt.
Well, she's closed 10 seconds in very, very short order indeed. There's still a long way to go to the top of this climb. As we know, it's 2.5 kilometers in length, average is 3.6, but the gradient is very, very uneven. Here we go, 10% kicks up. That was that little flat section of around 400 meters, but Kochinski continuing with that technique she has out of the saddle, low cadence, high torque. She is so powerful. Remember, she's only very light, but kicking out well over 300 watts, and she is slowly but surely eating into the lead of Julia Schellau. But the big question remains, can she shut the gap? Because over the top of the climb, once they're off the tarmac, the pendulum, the advantage from a technical perspective, from a rolling resistance perspective, moves back into the favour of the German. So she really has to close this down as quick as she can. Actually, she has around 1.5 kilometres over the top of the climb as well, with which she'll still be at a little bit of an advantage. So it looks like we've got the steamroller being activated by Schellau.
Wow, this is sensational. And take a look, Matt, at the gap that has been closed from Kochinski to Schellau. She's closed it from 33 seconds, now 11 seconds. As you just mentioned, she wants to try and close this gap while she's on the gravel sector. She's on the gravel bike. We have Schellau on the road bike. At the moment, the rider with the most advantage is Kochinski. And if you're putting out an average of around 4 watts per kilogram, you're saving upwards of 25 seconds on this gravel sector on a gravel bike. So for Schellau, she wants to try and maintain this gap. Once she gets over the top, gets onto the road, she's on the descent. She wants to try and take more time out of Kochinski. So we're getting a real battle on our hands. Meanwhile, the group behind, the gap is continuing to grow. 44 seconds, 45 seconds now there. Mary Wilkinson, the rider from Canyon Esports, who is leading that chase.
Yeah, that's a big gap. Kochinski now 7.5 seconds behind the German rider. Last time up this climb, the roles were reversed. It was Kochinski in the lead with Schellau in between and the group just behind her. She was caught over the top, but this time she's opted to open up that initial advantage on the tarmac, and she's holding steady, although Kochinski has stolen back another second. And even if she maintains the same power, even if we assume both these riders are putting out a similar power to weight ratio, the advantage will be to Kochinski, who continues to shut the gap. 4.1 seconds. We're still not at the top of this climb. After this steep section, it flattens a little bit. We go over a couple of bridges, and then we go through the center of the mystical tree. But the gravel, this dirt road continues, and Kochinski, 2.3 seconds, and it looks as if the American, look at the effort of the American there, sat down in the saddle, clawing her way back, and she's back in contact on one of the steepest parts of the climb. What a pursuit. What a ride by Kochinski. 2 riders out in front. And it looks like the race now, although we've got 16 Ks to go, is between one of these 2 riders, because they're 45 seconds on the group behind.
That was a superb effort there from Kochinski. You saw the grit and determination on her face. Just take a look at the gear that she is grinding in her pain cave. 181 beats per minute, just to give you some sense of how difficult that move was. And you saw the watts per kilogram. She was maintaining over 7 watts per kilogram there to try and bridge across to Julia Schellau. Wow, what a race we have for the finale of the Premier Division ZRL.
It's absolutely fascinating stuff. It looks like Schellau is going to take maximum points over the top there, but I don't think Kochinski will be too worried about that as more ride-ons pour into the back pocket of the American just off the back wheel. Kochinski will continue to have a bit of an advantage over these wooden sections down into the market square. She moves to the front now. So Schellau takes 5 points, Kochinski with 3. The other riders haven't quite actually gone over the top here. So on at this particular section here, it will be Kochinski who has that little bit of an advantage. But when we get back on to the tarmac, that is where the pendulum will swing back into the favour of the German rider because she's on the road bike. So will she try and attack Kochinski on the flat? This is going to be a fascinating last lap, 15.5 kilometres to go. Here's the rest of the riders passing through the centre of the mystical tree. It looked like it was Cecilia Hansen taking third place there, and Stephanie Sidlik of Beth McKeever, should I say. So Hansen and then McKeever taking the final points. But no doubt about our two leaders out in front. Although the gap has come down, 40 seconds now to our duo out in front. Difficult to call this one. These are the two of the most strongest, exciting riders, but importantly, on completely different bikes. What a wonderful setup this is.
Well, whoever decided that this would be the finale, wow, chapeau, I doff my cap to you, because this is an incredibly exciting finale to round out this season of the ZRL. Impressive, so impressive.
Well, there we go. Confirmation of the points so far on the night. Good night from Movistar. They're 20 points, 2024 with 19. Heino with a solid 18. Team Swedish Zwifters equal on fourth with Ionian and Beast Mode. Then we have ATP and Canyon with 4 points there. So heading down the descent, the lead of our two riders out in front has been taken or pegged back a little bit now, 38 seconds. But remember, these two riders have been really on the offensive twice, in fact. And what impresses me about these two riders, when you look about who deserves the most, we know that fortune favours a brave, but both Kochinski and Schalau over the last few races, over this season so far, although it's not just about them, they've been two of the most exciting riders, the two riders that are willing to take a risk and making this such an exciting prospect to watch as well.
They certainly have, and they've just been animating the races, and especially, you know, their forte, their attributes as a rider, their physical abilities are suited to the hillier races with the undulations, and they make the most of it, and they make it incredibly exciting. When you look at 2 weeks ago when we were in Yorkshire, even 3 weeks ago, both of these riders were animating the race, trying to split things up on the climbs, and it was always these two riders battling it out between the two of them. So there's almost a real rivalry starting to build and begin between the two riders.
It certainly is. Well, this is where the rider on the front now, Julia Shallow of Beast Mode, powered by Rose, in that orange and black kit, will be at a little bit of an advantage because she has opted to ride on a road bike. And the rider just behind her, the early attacker in this race, attacked on lap number 1, is Kristin Kochinski. So the best thing that Kochinski can do to save that little bit of energy is to try and tuck into the slipstream of Shallow as best she can. And then on the odd opportunity, maybe on the downhill sections, right in front, because the gap is it's stabilizing now. It's actually knocking down. So they've got to be aware of what is happening behind, because Heino might actually combine with Canyon Esports to work together to try and bring these two back. Although we've got 13.1 Ks to go, there's a lot of very, very strong riders behind, a lot of teams with ambition to try and take this final race. And this is the chasing back pack containing Baharan, Williams, Lethbridge, Wilkinson, McKeever, Mora, Adegist, Sidlik and Whitelaw, and also Cecilia Hansen. So 2 riders in front and 10 riders forming this chasing pack. As we look over on the right hand side, it looks like something from a forgotten past, the claw of some strange dinosaur. I do love the Easter eggs on this Makuri Islands, this map. It is absolutely fascinating. I love the cherry blossoms as well. It's so beautifully designed. It's so much fun to ride in.
It certainly is, and I just love the difference between all of the worlds. They've all got their each individual parts. You see the animals on the left-hand side just running along to try and take front row seats of the fascinating race. But something that stands out to me for Heino and Canyon Esports is it's almost in their best interest to bring these two riders back, because the big points available come the finish line with the 50 points, the 40 points. The further down we get in the points tally, the less advantage those riders have. That Heino, they want to try and take a bigger advantage over their rivals, likewise to Canyon, likewise to Ionian. So they'll miss out on those big points where there's a big difference between first and second, second and third.
Well, that is exactly what they're doing, because the gap has come down 26 seconds, although Shallow and Kochinski are riding together. They are taking turns on the front, putting out 3.4 watts a kilo and 4.1, it's fluctuating, of course, 4 watts a kilo there for Kochinski. Just going out that short section there, she would have been a brief advantage, but only for a few seconds before she slots back into the slipstream of the German rider, and the gap is continuing to fall. I do think you are right. There's a lot at stake in this race, and we know, although Heino have got a good lead on the overall standings, remember, they are the first team overall with 97 points, GCN Esports with 92. Heino Racing are going to want to make sure of this, although mathematically now, given the fact they are the team with numerical advantage in terms of the first 10 riders on the road, they will certainly like to end this season on a high, as Kochinski offers herself a little bit of a rest. She does make nearly 5 watts a kilo look almost easy, doesn't she?
It's somewhat to be jealous about, isn't it? Just how she makes it look so simple, so easy. Her finesse on a bike is just incredible. Her style, it's admirable. The way she races, the way she rides, it's so impressive.
It certainly is. Well, if you are just joining us, we are coming in to the back end of the final round of the ZRL. This is the women's race. We have 10.6 kilometers to go. We are in Makuri Islands, and this is the Countryside Tour. A total distance of 43.28 kilometers, and as you can see on the top left, 10.5 Ks to go, and we have 2 riders out in front. Julia Shallow, she's leading at the moment. They're using that draft power-up, and the rider just rolling through in that blue of 2024 is Kristin Kochinski, and the gap behind now is only 20 seconds to this chasing pack. This whole field has been detonated on this brutally difficult course. And again, if you are just joining us, half of the course, or not half, around a third of the course is actually on gravel roads or dirt roads. And the dirt roads are uphill as well to the mystical, on the temple climb, should I say, to the heart of the mystical tree. And this is the only hilltop finish of this season of the ZRL. But the gap is continuing to come down. 23 seconds. But the 2 riders out in front will know that, won't they? They'll know exactly what the gap is. They'll be fed that sort of information so they can gauge their effort out in front, knowing what they've done on previous laps, knowing how strong they are, and knowing that none of these riders could catch them. They could actually afford to knock it back to maybe 20 seconds, then just squeeze it a bit if they want to.
They can, and this is a moment for those 2 riders to take a little bit of rest and respite after their efforts, their incredible efforts up the temple climb. Meanwhile, the energy expenditure, the effort being made by this chasing pack is huge at the moment, because if you think they've got to try and close this gap, make sure they're in the right place. If they catch these 2 riders towards the lower slopes of the climb, that effort, how much is it going to take its toll on this chasing group?
Yes, certainly. The gap has started to stabilise now. It went down to around 24 seconds. It's now heading north again. 26 seconds for the group, currently being led by Caroline Williams. In fact, it's Beth McKeever, the only representative from Movistar, previous winner of a round this season. Such a talented rider. Took the sprint earlier on, and in fact, it is Movistar so far who have scored most points throughout the night on the intermediate sprints. And for the sprints, we have 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 points on offer. And then for the Queen of the Mountains climb, 5, 3, 2, 1. And remember, it is a points race. But what is the situation here? Oh, I thought we had a bit of an attack now. It's just Kochinski just dropping off the back wheel of Julia Shallow. And what she won't want to do is lose her on the tarmac, because once the gap starts to open up and she's not in that draft, she's going to be at a distinct disadvantage. But I don't think we are going to see an attack from Shallow, or will we? Will we see that little rise? There's the graph. The heat map, should I say, of the draft behind. So Kochinski knows how to ride just in the slipstream there, and she'll be putting out quite a lot less power. As you can see, Shallow having to put out 5.3. Kochinski sat in the slipstream, 4.7 there, although factor in the fact that Kochinski has that added little bit of rolling resistance because she has opted for a gravel bike. But again, she does make it look good. Up this little drag out of the saddle again. This is an interesting duo. So strong, and they've built up the lead again, Hannah. Yeah, she looks like she was communicating on her phone there. She is allowed to communicate. She'll be communicating with her teammates. Remember, the next group on the road after the chasing group at 35 seconds. It's Steph Clutterbuck is leading the group for Movistar Esports. They're at 1 minute and 22 seconds behind. So Kochinski clearly having a bit of a conversation with, you'd imagine, either with her coach or somebody in the team in relation to what the plan is going to be for her. So Shallow rolled through to the front. Kochinski back into the slipstream here. 204 ride-ons. Big appreciation from the Zwift community for both of these riders. Please do get involved. I might seem like I'm nagging, and I am, because these riders are giving their all. They're entertaining us. They're part of this community, and they are working very hard indeed. And remember, any of you who fancy racing in the ZRL at any level in the community divisions, get involved. You can apply to race with any team. It's such a big community. Well over, I think at last count, well over 1,300 teams. It really is an astonishing community, isn't it? We know how many people are riding on Zwift, but the fact we've got so many racing at all different levels is a real testament, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's a true testament to the Zwift platform. Riders racing across different time zones, different nations. In the community divisions, there's different time zones available, so it can suit your work-life balance, your what you have to fit in throughout your day, which is the beauty of it. And in this Premier Division, we're seeing riders racing across all sorts of different time zones. Some it's very early morning, depending on which continent they're on. For Kochinski, it's sort of mid-morning. For her, Shallow, sort of late evening. It's just the beauty of Zwift racing.
It certainly is. Well, we've got the men's race after this, but we've got 7 kilometres to go now. It is also the final of the men's. This is race number 6. And if your interest is piqued and you're watching this for the very first time, this is the last race of the season, but we've got a brand new season starting early in the new year as well. So make sure you tune in for that, or even better still, get involved in the racing yourself. But Shallow also communicating on her head unit there, or on her phone out of the saddle. Fan going. And she's opened up a little bit of a gap on Kochinski here. Kochinski will have to work just that little bit harder to close it. She should be moving back into the slipstream of the German. There you go, 5.5 watts a kilo, right in that red mark. That's where she needs to be to get that best draft advantage. And she, I would imagine, although they've been swapping turns, it will be shrewd of her to try and just save that little bit of energy, because by and large, on the approach to this climb, it is going to be Shallow, who it's a lot easier for Shallow to ride. Look at that. She's actually on the front, although she's accelerated through that little point there. There's not quite the power differential that you will see, but look at the gap on this now, 54 seconds. There's no doubt about who's going to win this one. It's either going to be Shallow or Kristin Kochinski. There's no way they are going to be caught unless they decide to go for multiple bike changes and have an espresso before they hit the final climb.
Maybe a little stop at the Zwift Draft House into Yorkshire World back in is the only way that they'll be able to lose this gap, because it was looking increasingly dangerous, wasn't it? That the group was going to catch this duo out front. It came down to 20 seconds. Now increasing consistently, 58 seconds, this chasing pack. And take a look at this. Caroline Williams is not hanging around for nobody as she increases going into this intermediate sprint. But look at Beth McKeever from Movistar. She's coming up on the right-hand side. The challenge for the remaining points is crucial. And take a look at that. Well, it is McKeever taking the 6, Verhaeren and Addergeest from the Ionian race team with the 5 and 4 respectively. So again, Heino and Canyon Esports not scoring in that final intermediate sprint there, Matt.
No, maybe saving something special for this climb, although shutting a gap of 52 seconds, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but what it would need is for a supreme effort, and for both of these riders to completely and utterly capitulate as we head back up towards the village Onsen. That in turn will take us through the fishing village. A little bit of an acceleration on the front here by Kristin Kochinski. This is group number 3 on the road. No points on offer at the sprint, but they're at just over a minute behind. So this group, this bunch, this peloton, should I say, torn apart on the very first lap. As Shallow looks like she's making a little bit of an effort just to shoot a little bit of a spike in power there. Nothing, I don't think, that will trouble Kristin Kochinski, although she's drifted off to 3/4 of a second there. Shallow knows it is now that she's got that little bit of an advantage. So this is where Kochinski needs to try and make sure she sticks like glue to the back wheel of Shallow, who continues to ride hard on the front. I'm wondering if she's trying to press home a little bit of an advantage, but given there's only 2 riders here, there's no element of surprise at all. And even though Kochinski is on a bike with the added bit of rolling resistance, to actually drop somebody is a different kettle of fish, and it's going to be hard for Shallow, I think, to break clear of Kochinski before the climb.
It's going to be very, very hard, but she's trying, isn't she? We keep seeing this injection of pace from Shallow to try and break Kochinski, to try and shed her off her wheel and try and put some hurt and pain and sting into the legs of the American rider from 2024 in that blue jersey on the pink bike. Julia Shallow doing her work at the front, the rider in the black and orange kit at the moment, and this is going to be quite a cagey affair, I think, going into this final few kilometres between these two riders, because neither of these riders have had an individual victory in the ZRL this season. So for them, for both of these riders, huge honours are at stake.
Indeed, well, there they are, huge honours. But the honours so far in terms of team points on the night: 2024 lead with 27, Movistar in second, courtesy primarily of Beth McKeever. Beast Mode in third with 21. Then we have Heino with 20, equal with Ionian Race Team. Team Swedish Zwift is there in sixth with 11, Canyon with 8, and ATP Racing with 6 points. As Shallow again moves to the front now. Not long before we hit the climb. Remember, the final climb, 2.5 kilometers in length, but this time it won't be Queen of the Mountains points. It will be the finish line, and the winner of this race will be crowned. Will it be Shallow? Will it be Kochinski? Kochinski, these little surges by Shallow are really clearly making Kochinski hurt. She's always at that little bit of a disadvantage. So you'd imagine, Hannah, that the rider to hit the bottom of this climb the freshest will be Shallow, because she's on the road bike. But we've seen, as soon as we hit the dirt, unless Shallow takes a risk and goes for a bike change, but I can't see that, because she's going to lose 15 seconds at least and then have to close that back. She's just going to have to do what she can, and maybe she's got a cheeky little Steamroller Power-Up in her back pocket as well. Who knows? We know she has got a Power-Up, we just don't know which one.
That's the beauty, the fascination of this finale, going into the final 3.7 kilometres. And I think, as you were saying earlier on, Matt, that Kochinski posting her best ever 5-minute power output recently. So that shows what type of form she's in, really suited to this finale. And I think when she has that raw power, that determination, the bit between her teeth, and the bike that she's on, adding to the element of her effort in this finale. As we take a look at this chasing pack, and you see the impetus from the group is almost completely gone, as that gap goes over 1 minute. 1 minute and 8 seconds now is that gap.
That's the biggest gap that we've seen across both men's and women's racing for a breakaway ever. I think it just shows that this course, the Countryside Tour on Makuri Islands, we started off on Makuri Islands on the Flatland Loop. That was round number 1. Just a gentle tease of what's to come, but this is a completely different proposition. It's the second hilliest of all of the rounds, 552 meters total in elevation, but it is clearly that difference. It's the tactical play today that has been the most intriguing, and two of the most aggressive, exciting racers in the ZRL are now out in front. But I may remind you, with 3.1 kilometers to go, as we look at the chase group at 1:11, back to the front, side by side, almost a drag strip as we head over one of the multiple beautiful bridges that crisscross this wonderful set of islands. Are the two riders out in front, Kochinski and Shallow, and they're on different bikes. The rider in front, Kristin Kochinski, does have the advantage, because as we pass through the fishing village, Cern will turn left onto the climb. She is on a gravel bike, whereas Shallow is on a road bike. So she will be at a disadvantage on the climb, but we know how strong she is. But it definitely should be advantage Kochinski. She's got 250 ride-ons as we head into the last few hundred meters of tarmac before we turn on to the dirt roads. 40.6 Ks underneath their wheels. It's been a thriller. And Hannah, there are only 2 riders left onto the dirt for the final time.
They make that left turn, and it's Shallow who leads the way. The German rider from Beast Mode, powered by Rose, Kochinski. You can see her in her pain cave. She looks so composed. She looks patient. She looks in control of her effort. And when you take a look at the fastest ever time on this climb, 5 minutes and 12 seconds, that is from Kristin Kochinski. She has a considerable lead in terms of personal bests on this climb over Julia Shallow. She's second ever, the second ever fastest time on this climb is 5 minutes and 23. So she does have a little bit of time over it, but of course, when a rider is head to head, you have so many added elements. It's almost like that psyching each other out, the mental aspect, the tactical game starts to play out as well.
Oh, it certainly will. Well, the thing is, although Kochinski, we know how strong she is. As you said, she's putting the power down now. Look at this, 5.4 watts again. Look at the power. Look at the acceleration of the American. Look at the digits now, 9 watts a kilo. The ride-ons keep coming as well, and she is opening up a gap on the German on this steep section of the climb. Still 2 kilometers to go, but the best thing to do is to go early, and she's doing it. She chose the gravel bike, and so far it is serving her very, very well indeed. And we know the sort of numbers she can push out. 7 watts a kilo. What an acceleration by the American. Shallow now, 6 seconds adrift.
Well, it was full commitment from the beginning of the race. She went with the gravel bike. She never made a change. She knew that she didn't want to have that added stress. And so far, for the American rider, Kristin Kochinski of 2024, it has worked out for her. And she's maintaining 6 watts per kilo at the moment. You see the time gap to Julia Shallow, the German rider from Beast Mode Power by Rose. 12 seconds, now 14 seconds. What has the German rider got to respond to Kochinski?
Well, this is absolutely fascinating stuff. And there, Kochinski finds another couple of watts per kilo. And even if they're riding at the same watts a kilo, the advantage that the gravel bike gives you at this sort of power is around 20 to 25 seconds. So whatever Shallow does, I don't think she's going to pull back an absolutely rampaging Kristin Kochinski, who is actually kicking out even more power now. 6.5, 6.8 watts a kilo as the Rose continues cruelly to rise. 8% here. Shallow also out of the saddle. It's been a brave performance. She's raced as tactically astutely as she can, but Wilkinson has gone clear. She's trying to break clear from the rest of this small group of 10 riders. A reminder of the composition of the group behind. 4 from Heino, Hansen, Mora, Lethbridge, Whitelaw. 1 from Movistar, McKeever. 3 from Canyon Esports, Williams, Wilkinson, who you can see now on your screen there, out of the saddle, recent silver medalist in the British Hill Climb Championships. She's got Stephanie Sidlick for company as well. 2 from Ionian in the form of Adegis and Verharen. But no doubt about the 2 riders out in front. Kochinski is besting Shallow, and the gap now, Hannah, is nearly 30 seconds for the American.
Well, this is mightily impressive as she still maintains the huge power, and Kochinski now, she's grinding that huge gear with the low cadence. Another huge injection of pace from Kochinski, heart rate at over 180 beats per minute. And at the moment you see this speed, despite, and this is one of the flatter sections as she drops her final power up tonight, the lightweight feather power up, as the gradient starts to ramp up to 5%. This could be Kochinski's first ever ZRL win in the Premier Division. If she makes it to the finish line, 34 seconds, she should be able to do it, barring any problems at the moment, Matt.
Well, it's been an absolutely spectacular effort. She was the first rider to attack. She was overhauled by Shallow. Shallow then went next time up this fearsome climb. It is a fearsome climb. It's a mystical climb. It has, put a lot of riders on the back foot. But look at the face of Kochinski. She knows she can sense the victory here. 267 ride-ons. Keep them coming, because this is a rider that has really lit up the ZRL over the last few years. Over 30 races, 4 seasons, and Kochinski can almost taste victory. She continues to stamp on the power. Big numbers, but that's what she's famed for. A big heart and big numbers. She sits back down again, Hannah. 560 meters to go. The road will kick up again, but with a gap of 39 seconds over the German rider. What a brave ride it's been by Shallow. It looks as if victory is finally going to come the way of Kochinski.
Well, after several podium finishes for Kochinski, multiple times second, multiple times third, she's had multiple top 10s. Finally, the victory will go to Kristin Kochinski as she reaches this 10% gradient. You can see how laboured this effort is now for Kochinski and how difficult this is as she tries to get every inch of energy and power out of her body, rocking and rolling from side to side. Only 350 meters between Kochinski and victory at the moment, Matt. What a beautiful ride. It's been sensational. She's been audacious throughout all the seasons of the ZRL. This is wonderful.
It certainly is 200 metres to go now for Kristin Kochinski, the mystical tree. This will be a mystical victory. She designs jewellery. She works with diamonds. This has been a diamond performance. The victory of her career, the first ever in the ZRL. Look at what it means. So she fights every single way to the line. Finally, she takes the win. An emphatic one at that. And one that will live long in her memory. Kristin Kochinski of 2024 takes the final round of the ZRL in fine style. What a special win that was, Hannah. Second place will go to Julia Shallow. A brave performance, but couldn't quite match the raw wattage and, of course, the shrewd choice of bike by Kochinski. But nonetheless, a brave ride by the rider from Beast Mode, powered by Rose.
She laid it down all on the road, didn't she? Especially the penultimate time up the temple climb, where she took such a huge margin in terms of the time gap, and it was looking very prominent from Julia Shallow, but she put up a huge fight there to try and go for the victory. Second it will be on the night for the German rider, and Wilkinson, she has a very slender advantage over Heino Cecilia Hansen, only 3 seconds. Can she manage to hold on, Matt?
It's looking like she will. Look at the face of Mary Wilkinson. This woman knows how to suffer. Such a popular rider as well. So consistent. And she just about holds on. In fact, 3 seconds to the good. She takes the final podium spot. Cecilia Hansen of Heino there in 4th. Also a good ride by Beth McKeever in 5th place. And we're looking at Caroline Williams just rolling across the line here as well. Second rider home for Canyon Esports, so a good race from Canyon Esports, and then the rest of the riders crossing through. Williams at a haste as well. Stephanie Sidlick not too far behind. Melanie Mora actually crossing the line just there with Vicky Whitelaw. But what an absolutely spectacular win from Kristin Kochinski. So long knocking on the door, and finally in the last race of the season on the Countryside Tour here in Makuri Island, it is the rider from 2024 that takes the win. And that is a smile that is going to last a very long time indeed. Well, Hannah, going to flip back to the studio. Lots and lots to talk about. I do understand from our producers at Zwift headquarters, but there's a lot of talk going on in the men's pen in relation to what bike to choose today. Let's have a look at the points today. Of course, the individual there win for Kochinski. So next up will be the points on the night. Well, there we go. And another emphatic victory. They had 4 riders in the front group. Remember, Heino take the win with 113. Canyon Esports in second with 91. Ionian with 91. 91, should I say. 20. Sorry, they're rotating round ever so slightly. I should just let them settle. But they are updating live. The joy of technology, updating live before your very eyes. Anyway, there you go. Heino take the night. But lots to talk about, lots to digest. Back over to Mark and Hannah in the studio.
Wow, what a race. And I've got to say, wow, Hannah, what a quick transition. We should sign you up for triathlon.
Certainly should. Wow. I'll give you a run for your money.
Well, amazing attack from Kristin Kochinski at the end there. I mean, she was dropping almost 10 watts per kilo for the final 2 kilometres there.
It's so impressive. You know, if you don't succeed the first time, try again. And I think that is the motto of Kristin Kochinski and 2024 as a team. It's so impressive to see the way they ride. She was the rider who made the first move tonight in the race. It didn't quite work out. She was caught. She had quite a considerable lead. And then she went again and she bridged that gap on the penultimate lap to Julia Shallow, who was also incredibly impressive. But for Kochinski, you saw that huge explosive attack from near enough the lower slopes of the climb, and you saw the numbers that she was putting out. I mean, the effort that it took, but the sheer elation come the finish line and the huge smile from Kochinski. And this was the move earlier on at the beginning of the race. She went on one of the slightly steeper parts of the climb, 6% there, and I think just took everyone by surprise. I think everyone was expecting it, but with so much at stake for those teams who are vying for the overall team positions, she did have that upper hand, and it was full commitment.
And also the confidence, I guess, to be one of only a few on a gravel bike. Obviously, everyone else on a road bike, considerable advantage on the tarmac, but when they hit the gravel, that's where her benefit came into play.
Yeah, and I think having the confidence in yourself and being happy with your choice is a huge thing. Thinking, well, if it doesn't work out for me, I had one choice. I stuck to the plan. If it doesn't quite work out, then we kind of took out any risk elements of anything going wrong with the bike change. But for Kochinski, it played out right into her hands. Perhaps she expended a bit more energy on the road sector. I'm just interested to see what the men are doing. They're probably frantically trying to change their bike to have a gravel bike for the whole race now.
Well, here is Kochinski going the final few metres of the race, and a very rewarding one after those efforts. And talking of which, eager to see the standings after these races. So obviously we had Team Heino really dominating this series and 4 in that chasing pack. So it's hard to see past those, surely.
It is, and especially with one other rider in the third group on the road. Let's not forget that the points go all the way down to 30th position across the line. So still big points on offer and still vital points for the teams. It's not all over, even if you're not in that second chasing group. So it's going to be close, it's going to be exciting, but also with Ionian up there, with Canyon Esports, Mary Wilkinson making a break for it. And as Matt said, she certainly knows how to suffer, doesn't she?
Okay, well, we've got the results here for the individuals. So for the team, we have Team Heino with 117 overall, Canyon Esports in second with 109, Ionian Race Team with 108, and then 2024 with the 19 points in the final round, coming in with 104 points. And in fifth, Team Swedish Zwifters, and Beast Mode in sixth. So very impressive.
So impressive, and you just saw, how large the gaps were, and how consistent Heino have been across the whole season, once again winning their 4th Premier Division ZRL in a row. It's just mightily impressive. They got off to, and being sort of nice about it, they got off to a bit of a slow start in this season, but they were consistent throughout, and they've overhauled it in the end.
Well, brilliant. We will now actually have Alice Lethbridge from the winning team joining us. Hello, Alice. Lovely to see you.
Hi, evening.
How was that race? How was the effort?
It was really tough. I've been doing some recon rides on it, and I knew that the climb would be really, really hard on the road bike. But then also it would be a risk if it ended up a small group being on a gravel bike, because you have to work much harder on the flat to stay in the draft. Yeah, so tough race with 3 5 to 6 minute climbs in it.
And when Kristin made that first attack, were you tempted to go with it, or was it just something else?
No, Kristin's actually been doing some recon rides that I've been on, so I know, 1, how strong she is, and 2, we knew that on the gravel she'd just get away, and we suspected we'd catch the first time, but when she joined shallow, obviously we know how strong those two are, and I'm so pleased for Kristin, because she works really hard, and she deserved that win today, so really well done to her.
Brilliant. And as a team, how did it work together? Did you work together? Obviously, you had 4 of you in that group, chasing group. Did you work together to try and bridge the gap?
No, we were just to be honest, we wanted to save our legs for the climb at the end, because we knew how hard it would be, and we knew as a team we were in a really good position, so that we didn't need to chase the 2 riders in front because of where they were behind us in the league.
Brilliant.
And I'm just interested, Alice, congratulations first and foremost to you and the team, but your 4th ZRL Premier Division team victory overall, it's so impressive.
Yeah, thank you very much. As I heard you saying, it was quite tough this season, because we've basically been down to the minimum 5 riders this season just due to life things. And then 2 of us, myself and Melanie, were racing outside in real life as well, so couldn't do every race because we were just too tired on a Monday after racing at the weekend, really. So it's been probably the hardest season for us because of that, and also just because of the pure talent in the Premier Division at the moment. And it's just so great to see it. It's fantastic to be pushed so hard every single week.
Well, thank you so much. Now, moving on over to the men's race.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mark, and thanks very much indeed, Hannah. It's the final race of the ZRL. That was absolutely spectacular stuff, but this time up, it is the turn of the men. There's a reminder, we are in the Makuri Islands on the Countryside Tour. The Featherweight Power-Up, the Draft Power-Up, and the intriguing Steamroller Power-Up as well. 2.6 laps, equating to 43.2 kilometres with an elevation gain. In this beautiful wooded world, there's a bit of everything here. 552 metres. As you know, I'm Matt Stevens, and alongside me, the legendary voice, the legendary man of Dave Towle. Dave, that was a breathless race. So wonderful to see Kristin Kochinski to win it. I mean, it really was quite special. But for the men, the way the bike choices played out is going to be critical. I'm imagining panic in the pens at the moment, but this should be a great race.
Yeah, my heart is still racing, Matt, no doubt about it. Hannah's right. Being confident in your choices, as we see the men are already out on course here, is going to be key. I'm sure those guys watching Kristin Kochinski, and I have to give a shout out to Kristin. She's been a standard bearer in the Zwift community. I remember when she got involved in racing over on Zwift Community Live, how much fun she was having, and she really has brought so much to the sport as these guys get after it very quickly out here, Matt, as that first sprint will be happening within the first 7 minutes or so out here, and that's really going to set the tone for the day. But you've got to believe in yourself like Kristin did to make an exceptional result. Before I throw it back to you, Matt, there's a lot to talk about here. And that women's race, I think there are really two races going on. The individual glory, as Kochinski was able to make herself the queen of Makuri. But now in this race, we actually have to look at the teams at the bottom of the table who are going to be fighting to stay in the ZRL. So a lot of information is out there, but really what's important to know, Matt, is only 12 teams are going to advance out of the current group. We're going to be racing in the next season with 15 total teams. We'll be adding 3 from our Zwift community. Their playoffs are going to be kicking off here shortly. They have their final race of the regular season coming up tomorrow. But there is a lot at play. As Matt, I'm going to throw it back to you as we are underway. It is on.
Indeed. Well, thanks very much for that explanation, Dave, because it does make this an intriguing prospect, not just at the top. We know the dominant team are next. They started off with a 10-point advantage, but there are several teams. In fact, there are 6 teams that could go down. So it's a real battle to stay in this league as we look at Hidenori Sausauchin. We've got information that he is one of the riders on a gravel bike. So it's difficult to tell when you're looking at this big mass of riders. So as soon as we know what bikes the riders are on, and you might be able to spot the double handlebar setup of many of these riders as well, depending on the bike choice that they have. But Hidenori Sausauchin of the Zwift Warriors team is on a gravel bike and is also a very, very good climber indeed. But that first sprint, as Dave alluded to, comes up after only 5 kilometers, but that does include, but you have to add on that little bit of a run in. But at the moment, this bunch huddled together. But as this race evolves, we will certainly see who's made the right choices. And a load of ride-ons get dropped as well. So please make sure you get involved in the comments underneath GCN Racing here. And we just heard as well that Ollie Jones, former winner of the Zwift Academy, of course, which is underway as we speak, is also on a gravel bike as well. But I think looking at the women's race, Dave, there's so much to really try and unpick here from a tactical perspective, because I don't think there's any opportunity really at these speeds to change bikes. And we didn't see that at the women's race. So the bike you've got is the race you're going to finish on, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree, Matt. I think you're out of your mind if you want to change bikes out here. This group is moving so quickly. There is no scenario where I could see that working out well for you. It's really a recipe for disaster. And, Matt, there's so many teams out here, as we said, that are really fighting for their existence here in the ZRL. But you're going to see some breakthrough rides as well. And I'm almost sure that you're going to see that as we see Locke rolling off the front, another one of the very ambitious Danish riders here. But you can see how quickly they're going to reel that back in as well. So looking up at the front, though, Matt, I think we're already starting to set up for the first points available. Now, the sprints score differently than the King of the Mountain. We're going to be looking for 10 points for the first rider over the line, 8 for second, and then it breaks down. The KOMs don't have quite as many points out here. As we come into this race, it is obviously Next. They are on a perfect score so far this season. They haven't missed a step. Canyon has been right there. Canyon has to worry about BZR, the Belgian Zwift racing team, as it's 100 points right now for Next. Canyon at 91 and BZR at 85.
Indeed. Well, I've just spotted a couple. We know that Van Noppen is on the gravel bike as well. Also, I spotted Spencer Segerbrook with the double handlebar setup from America, from Canyon. It looks as if the majority of riders from Canyon have opted for the gravel bikes, and we'll get confirmation of what Gary Muller and Lionel Vujasan are riding. Remember, they are the team that sit in second place overall with 90 points. The leading team, of course, Next Esports with 100. So it is going to be very, very difficult to overhaul, I think, the overall in this season so far. But the individual win will count for a lot. And also that battle towards the back end of the race is going to be absolutely fascinating. But we've got information in that Vujasan is on a gravel bike. And looking at Muller as well, gravel bike too. So Dave, all of Canyon Esports opting for gravel bikes.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess partly the fact that Canyon makes one of the best gravel bikes in real life as well, the Grail. Certainly it doesn't hurt as you can stay sponsor correct out there as well. This is the South African Mueller that we're looking at right now. He'll certainly be part of the conversation here, as it's going to take almost an act of God, to tell you the truth, if Canyon is going to overtake Next out here today. But they're certainly going to be looking to not only ahead but behind them as well. As the one thing that's noteworthy today in times are the riders that aren't with us. James Barnes did not take the start today, the 2-time winner. Actually, make it 3-time winner this season out there for James Barnes. I'm going to go back to 2, actually. But when you look at it now, another rider of note, Leonard Tugels of BZR, did not take the start today.
We've got an attack. Bruce Bird, as usual, as is his wont from draft, has flown the coupe. Bruce Bird from Canada. Look at the face of Bird, though, 8 watts a kilo. He's on a road bike, so he's using that advantage the best he can, but he's gone very, very early indeed, because we've got a fair distance until this sprint just yet. But he's been overtaken by O'Dowd, who goes straight by him, by a road bike as well, by O'Dowd. So O'Dowd, just shows the benefits there are to choosing a road bike when really pressing that power through. So O'Dowd well in front now, has overtaken Bird, but we're just coming in through to that finish in the moment. The road just bears to the left-hand side. You can see it just on the left of your picture. It's on the edge of a bend here. Of course, it comes after just after 5Ks, but O'Dowd's about to be caught on the line, in fact, by his teammates by the looks of things there. Foldegger was going through, but it looks like Foldegger took the win there for PO Auto Ceramic Speed. We'll get confirmation of that, but a big sprint, then several riders distance, but a very, very exciting sprint. First sprint done and dusted.
Matt, it's really interesting when you look at it. There are 2 teams right now, when you talk about the bubble, Toyota Cryo and PO Auto are both tied at 46 points. They are sharing 12th place. It is significant that Foldagger there picks up those points, because they really, really are one of the few teams that I would say, now you're going to notice they're the restart jersey as well as, well, look at this. So obviously PO Auto is en fuego right now, as it's going to be Foldagger and Listen. So they've already picked up 23 points in that first sprint. That's half the value of an outright win on the day today. So PO Auto, 4 stars for an outstanding start to this race. As a matter of fact, Matt, they're really moving themselves into a much safer position now, playing with the house's money as far as staying in the lead. Let's pick up this breakaway now, as this is going to be Schweib, the German rider here on Kirkmeyer. They're a team that is really looking to have a great day. They're hungry to stay in the ZRL, and it's going to be efforts like this that are going to make the difference for them here.
Indeed. Well, that is, as you just said, that's an emphatic win by P Auto, isn't it? 23 points. That's a good start, but it's an important start as well. Schweib now with a 5-second advantage. Looks to me, looking at those deep section rims, it looks like he is on a normal road bike, but P Auto Ceramic Speed taking the opportunity to gather up as many points as they can. I'll be intrigued to see which bikes they've gone for, whether they've looked at their composition and thought, well, let's just use road bikes and go for the sprints. Because they are in the drop zone at the moment. They're 13th place, equal with Toyota Cryo. And as Dave said and described at the top of the show, Only 12 teams stay in. The rest will drop out. So they need to force themselves at that drop zone. And they're only 1 point in front of Deepak Elite. Let's have a look at the slow motion replay of that sprint again. Power-ups being used left, right and centre. But look out for all of those light blue jerseys. And a couple of power-ups being used as well. Reminder of the power-ups on offer: Steamroller, Feather and Draft. But great use of the Draft power-up by at least a couple of their riders. But a good solo move here by our only rider out in front, by Kirkmaier. So a rider we've not seen too much of lately, but Shriva is enjoying a lead of around 5 seconds here, Dave.
When you look at it, Matt, there's really only 7 teams that I would say are safe coming into today to remain in the league. That would be Next, Canyon, BZR, Movistar, Ceres, Wahoo LaColle, and World Elite Zwifters. And take a look at that World Elite Zwifters lineup, by the way. They are representing the entire globe on that squad. The Swedish Zwifters and Callis, a Norwegian team, so they're both pretty safe. But then when you look at beast mode, and that was restart rider Ollie Jones, the Canadian that led out that sprint earlier. Another fascinating Zwifter, much like Kristin Kochinski. Everybody's got a story out here, and I happen to hear Ollie Dowd, he's got a Franken bike that he put together, Matt, that he races on up there in Canada, that he only uses on Zwift. As a matter of fact, I don't even think his fork has a headset in it. It's just sort of wedged in there and then a newspaper jammed in. So all he's looking, he just needed a machine to make some watts on, like this German is right now, is this diesel engine on the front here, throwing 6 seconds behind his rear wheel. Now, as you can see, Gilbert and Morgan are leading up the chase. This is going to be the Welsh rider Morgan that we're looking at, and this is the Ceres team. We haven't talked about Ceres anywhere near enough, or excuse me, this is going to be Deepak that we're looking at right now with Morgan, the Welsh rider, but Ceres deserves some credit as well. Ed Morgan, though, right now chasing hard as they hit the wooden bridge, but Ceres quietly sitting up in that top 5, Matt. They've had a good season, and I know that they'd like to close it out with a win here today. And certainly a rider like Gavin Dempster, the Scottish rider, could do something special on that final climb. We just don't have enough summit finishes in the sport, whether it's in real life or here on Zwift. Today's a very special day. That women's race, Matt, was one of the best races I've ever seen, and in real life or on this platform. But it looks like Ed Morgan's going to come back into the group as they're going to reset things here.
Yeah, they certainly are. Well, Morgan from Wales, as you say, Deepak Elite needs to do something special. I follow all of these teams on social media. Give them a follow as well, because in varying degrees, they give us a nice insight into how they're feeling, what their prep is, the setups of the riders as well, as we see Schweib as well. But Deepak Elite are sitting in the drop zone. They have 45 points overall, only 1 point behind PO Auto Ceramic Speed and Toyota Cryo. So they need to do something special. As to Kirkmaier, although I think they probably know that they are going to drop out of the league, although they're certainly going to put on the best kind of show they can. But Schweib's still out in front, but he's starting to tire a little bit, having to get himself out of the saddle, still managing to hold at 6 watts a kilo. But the all-important stat there isn't just his power, it's his heart rate as he moves on to the climb for the first time. This is the first ascent of the Temple climb, and the German out in front, using that road bike to his advantage on the tarmac. But now, crucially, Dave, as we hit the bottom of this climb, he will be at a disadvantage to those riders who've opted for a gravel bike for the next 6 or 7 minutes, because it's not just over the climb itself. There's a good 1.5 kilometers of gravel dirt on the descent as well.
As you were saying, Matt, almost a third of the course today is gravel out here, and that's been an absolute game changer. A lot of steamrollers popping up there. Now, the steamroller, for all intents and purposes, turns whatever bike you're on and whatever surface you're on into riding on road tires on tarmac. And so that's a huge advantage for the riders right now on a road bike on this gravel sector. Not as much of an advantage for the riders on gravel bikes already. The delta or the gain there is massive when you're on that road bike, but it's only for 30 seconds when you talk about the steamroller. Also in play today, Draft, which is probably, and Feather. Steamroller is the one I have a feeling most riders would like to have in their quiver.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if there's a bit of an attack, or they're really starting to struggle and they're on a road bike or they're on a gravel bike on the tarmac as opposed to road bikes. Because the vast majority of the circuit is not on gravel. It's on a road, it's on it's on tarmac. So if you're choosing a gravel bike, that's when you'll use the Steamroller one, just to bring yourselves back to what it's like riding on tarmac on a normal road bike. As a couple of riders just now accelerating off the front, and this line is starting to split here. Lionel Vuillersan is moving clean. We know he's opted for a gravel bike, and he's also putting down a lot of power. 183 beats a minute for the Belgian, 8 watts a kilo. This is the sort of circuit that will suit him down to the ground. He loves a hilltop finish. And Van Diemen is on his bike as well. The rider from Movistar also opting for a gravel bike as well. And they've now moved 3 seconds clear of Knudsen, De Roos, Jones and Power-Up. Nicky Hug also there in the mix. But an early move here by the Belgian.
I have to wonder how many of these men watched the women's race and decided after seeing what KK did to change over to the gravel bike at the last second. I have a feeling that that's what you call a real influencer out there, not some phony social media influencer. Kristin Kochinski's changing the name of the game out here, even in our men's race, I think, is obviously that gravel bike is going to, in my mind now, it looks like certainly the choice. This is the man they call the Duck, the Belgian, Lionel Vuillersan. So Lionel right now is really, I would say, much like Kristin Kochinski, Matt, he's been there or thereabouts on the podium many, many times in his career. He's also a racer that I don't believe has missed a ZRL race. He should be into his 30th as well. So two of the most consistent performers. Maybe Lionel gets to have his day out here today as well. They're only 10.5K in, a long, long way to go out here. But we separate the wheat from the chaff very, very quickly. And Matt, they're 1K away from the next points on offer here. 5 points for the first man over the line.
They certainly are. Well, this is this little bit where it flattens. It's almost a bit of false hope, because you think you're over the worst of the climb. All of these riders would have done recon. They know it well, but it's a climb that almost taunts you. It has these steep sections and then these flat sections as well, then kicks up. Maximum gradients on this climb of 10 seconds, but Van Diemen of Movistar's got onto the wheel of the Belgian. This is this little bit of false flat. Look at that, -6. Then it kicks up again. So he gathers a little bit of momentum over the bridge before the road starts to rise again. And the actual finish line in the heart of the mystical tree is flat. But the 300 meters before that, very, very steep indeed. And we're just getting to one of those steep pitches that I was talking about now. 8% now for our two riders. Look at that, perfect use. Almost simultaneously there, Dave. Van Diemen and Lionel Vuillersan engaged. The featherweight power-up, making them 10% lighter for 15 seconds. And they've opened up a nice little lead here. Vuillersan and Van Diemen are now 8.9 seconds in front of the chasers. So a good duo, both on the same sort of bikes here as the road kicks up yet again.
Yeah, this is an even fight, no doubt. Now, Pim Van Diemen has won in the ZRL at this level, so he's always going to be a danger man. And Lionel Vuillersan, as we said, these are two very talented riders off of the front. Still so very early, but they're not really working together, are they, Matt? Each seems to be in his own private fight on this climb. Or actually, now we're starting to go back down, and as you noted, you can see it remains gravel here. It's not just gravel up to the top, which makes a lot of sense. Why would they start paving it at one side of the hill, not the other, right? So as we take a look now, though, Lionel Vuillersan is starting to open up a gap here. As Pim Van Diemen, I think, might go back to the comfort of, well, comfort, it's all relative, isn't it? But that chasing group here is Martin Mertens leading that group. Stefan Kirkmeyer, who would love to get a win and make a statement. They're not only racing for the team points out here, there's always going to be that pride that racers have. So we're have some teams and riders are fighting to stay in the league. Some riders are looking to make their individual mark, and some teams like Next and Canyon, and certainly BZR, looking to hold on to a spot on the podium, as we're right now looking at the total points that have been garnered, and it's still 23 for PO Auto. Those were all earned at that first sprint. Team Swedish Swifters with 7, Canyon with 5, Callus Esports with 4. So the lion's share of those points, though, with PO Auto Ceramic Speed.
Yep, big start by PO Auto Ceramic Speed. There is a big disparity between the points on offer at the Kingdom Mountains and the sprints, and they knew that. And therefore, they went for it early on to build that nice bit of a buffer. But our rider out in front on his own now is Lionel Vuillersan. Time trialing his way down this gradual descent, 7% still on the gravel. So this gravel bike will give him that little bit more of an advantage. But I'm just looking a bit further down the field. This field is split to bits. It's essentially spread. You've got the gap 4 seconds from the Belgian. And then we've got this group of riders, which is no more than 43 riders strong. And then we've got a big gap of 35 seconds and then 45 seconds to the next group. So the first ascent of the Temple climb has really split this field. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for any riders at these sorts of speeds, Dave, to get back in contact. But Vujasan is about to be reabsorbed by the peloton. He will get back in and just give himself a little bit of a rest. But clearly a man on form. He went hard, but he certainly reduced this field considerably by that very, very good effort.
I have a feeling today, Matt, that Canyon is racing for pride, inter-team pride, because there's almost no scenario where they can beat Next for the overall season win. They would have to finish 10 teams higher than Next today. Even if they beat Next by 100 points, if Next is second, it's only 1 point in our team table. So we translate the points that each rider earns into the team total and then move that into our team breakdown. 20 for the winning team, 19 for second, 18 for third, and on down. So that really means that unless Next completely implodes, which they won't, although they certainly are saving it for the final part of the race here as we take a look at the peloton together right now. But Matt, you're right, it's greatly reduced. There's a rider to watch today, Ryan Larson, though, of the Ceres team.
Yeah, Larson looking good. He's on the gravel bike as well. Just got into a super tuck, so a gravel super tuck's not something we talk about very often in the ZRL, but I must admit I'm really enjoying the different dynamics at play today, and already we've got a big selection of riders not offering much of an opportunity for riders to get back in contact. So yeah, we have 44 riders in this front group, and then 21 seconds to the second group at the road, which is being led by Cowan of Toyota Cryo RDT. But most of the favourites are in this front group, and Larson, as you can see, they're opting for that gravel bike. And look at that setup. That is a pretty optimal setup that he's got there. Nice bit of ventilation, but everything at his disposal there as well. Multiple screens. Looks like he's even got a microphone there, Dave. That is one hell of a setup for Ryan Larson.
Yeah, definitely dialed in. He must be working with NASA on that, I would think, as we take a look at the group together. And Matt, some of the names here we've been talking about, Gary Mueller and Ollie Jones. Matthias de Roos is going to be interesting, the BZR rider, when push comes to shove for the finale today. Certainly a rider I'd be keeping my eye on as we get a little bit of a chance to take some inventory here. This is Brian Duffy Jr., breakthrough rider this year with the Next team. Again, this team has been perfect all year long, and that's really what I think is motivating Canyon today, Matt, is they're really looking to take at least one win out of this season. And so far, they're looking great. I mean, they've been definitely contesting at every opportunity, and I'd expect them to continue to be willing to clash swords out here today.
Indeed. Well, as you said, they've got pride at stake. I don't think anybody expected Next Esports to hit the ground running and to dominate in the way they have. And I think the first people to agree with that would be Canyon Esports. It was a complete bolt from the blue, but they are one of the most, they are clearly the most drilled team, 100% record. But Brian Duffy Jr. looking pretty good here, and they clearly have got several riders in this front group as almost a snowstorm of power-ups are being used here. Riders getting rid of them just before they hit the next. This is the start-finish gantry. That is where they'll get another power-up as well. So making sure they drop that power-up off before they pass through that start-finish area. So 1 lap down. Remember, 2.5 laps is this race. So 1.5 laps still to go. And we have a group of 44 riders out in front as we continue to look at Brian Duffy Jr. as this terrain rises and falls, changing his pace in and out of the saddle as we see a few more little draft power-ups being used as well. And that can definitely help when you look at the dynamics of running a gravel bike on tarmac, especially if there's a few riders surviving on road bikes here. That draft power will help mitigate, won't it, Dave, the roller resistance situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the race, I think, where bike choice has become absolutely paramount. I've never heard more discussion about that around a race. And clearly, it's made a big difference out here today. If you've made it to this point in this group, you can take a deep breath, get ready because there's going to be another absolute barrage coming at us. There's only 4 opportunities to score points out here today before the finale. And again, there's a monster number of points available at the end of this race, 50 for the winner. But the next sprint opportunity coming up has more points than the KOM, 10 points for the winner over that line. And that's going to make a big difference here, not only for the teams at the top of the table, but those teams looking to fight to hold on to a spot in this league. One way that you can make a difference, because let's be honest, with the quality of the teams that you've got up in that top 3 with BZR, Canyon, and Next, it comes down to slim pickings. That's a rider we were talking about earlier, Mateus de Roos of the BZR team. He's on a road bike today, looking to keep things cool. He looked cool.
He does. I mean, the net result of riding a road bike for the vast majority of the circuit, if you wanted to break it down to his simplest terms, he should be the freshest when you hit the climb, but therefore has got to go deeper. So, and what he will need, again, is a power-up. As you look at Bruce attacking off the front there, we're coming back towards very, very quickly that intermediate sprint. So Bruce now moves himself clear from this 44 rider group. So Bruce of Next Esports, looking to capitalize on that massively, but it's Mel that has now come across the gap. Vidar Mel of Norway, the former Norwegian esports champion. And straight over the top is Martins. So that little attack has been brought to nothing. Good move there by Martins. As we see a couple of more power-ups being used, 25 Ks to go now, but it is all back together. But the BZR don't have their superstar in the team for this particular race. Leonard Turgle's not here, as Dave said at the top of the show, but still some very classy riders. And looking back through this field, every single member of Canyon Esports has managed to make this front group, Dave.
Yeah, Matt, when you look at it now, that's going to be a teammate of Mateus de Roos. Jasper Peradijn's now on the front, the Belgian here. But the 2 teams that we're going to be talking about at the finale is going to be Toyota Cryo and Pio Auto. And it looked like we saw Cryo looking to try to level up with what happened with Pio Auto earlier. Pio Auto had 23 points total, leading at this point in the race, now combining all of the team riders into the Pio Auto pile there with 23. But I have a feeling that Toyota Cryo might have moved up, although Michael Knudsen was up there, the Danish rider, and it sounds like they're starting to feel a little bit better, as Pio Auto was 4th overall in some previous seasons. They've slipped a bit, and I think that they're looking to rally. Certainly they're looking to hold on to their spot in the league and come back strong for next season in 2022.
Interesting. Apparently, we're hearing that Turgles is on holiday, so if he's watching, thanks very much for all your contributions over the series so far. But he said he would choose a road bike, which is very, very interesting indeed. But looking at the jerseys in this group, several riders, at least 3 riders from Wahoo Lacole there, but the whole squad as well from Next Esports as well, as Bruce attacks off the front now. Mark Bruce. Vujasan tries to come across the gap by the looks of things, just punting himself onto the wheel of Bruce. So we know that Canyon Esports all riding gravel bikes, as are most of the riders from Next Esports as well. So Bruce now leading.
It's that double bar that's the easiest indicator if you're wondering how you can tell at home. It's very, very subtle. That's going to be Bruce on a road bike right there, and right behind him, as you said, Matt, correctly, Lionel Vujasan on that Canyon Grail gravel bike. Now, it looks to me like Bruce and Vujasan, and they've got Jasper coming up to join them, but I think everybody's going to join them now. Fabian Devola is there as well. So let's hit the reset button now, as we're just coming up on 20K, and it's 2.6 laps of racing. Matt, this summit finish suits some riders so well. They don't get this opportunity that often, and I think they're really going to make the most of it out here today, like Kochinski.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why we saw Vujasan. I think it's going to be an attritional race. It's all about selection of the right sort of bike as well. As we saw poor Oldling just drifting off the front. Well, it was a big attack off the front, hardly a drift, opening up a gap of 1.5 seconds. There it is, stats, just under 600 watts. A nice cadence there of a 95 RPM. 50 Ks an hour, that equates to, on this particular section of road, 174 beats a minute. Really interesting drilling down into the stats of these riders. And again, look at the handlebar setup of Odlin there. He is as well on a gravel bike. So good choice by the rider from World of Elite Zwifters, powered by Oral 7, to give them their full name. And he's clearly going pretty strong. He's on a gravel bike here, Dave, but managed to open up a lead of 5 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. Is he trying to build up a little bit of a buffer here? And it looks like they're starting to open up the throttle right behind us. Here comes Martin Mertens, Ollie Jones, Jasper Paradines, Christopher Thiem, Howell Davies. All right. Boy, these are some of the big names here in the ZRL. Regulators mount up as they launch into this sprint. And it certainly looks like Stefan Kirchmeier, the German monster here, is going to make a big run at this. He's not going to catch Paul, though. The New Zealander is going to hold on and take top points here.
Yeah, Odlin takes that by a couple of seconds. Kirchmeier in second, Vidamel in third, Thiem and Martins Glednes also up there. So a good ride from the rider from World of Elite Zwifters, and there is confirmation. He takes the win. Kirchmeier in second with 8, Thiem in third for Beast Mode Powerbow Rose, Vidamel there in fifth, Glednes there for Callas with 4 points. Then we have Martins, Jones and Bruce, the first rider across the line there for Next Esports, but they do have 5 riders in this front group. But interesting that a couple of their riders have gone for gravel bikes and some have gone for road bikes. That's really, really interesting indeed, isn't it? But we know that all of the Canyon Esports squad are in this front group. The team that sits second overall, and they've gone for gravel bikes. But only time will tell, but we've got 2 more ascents of this climb as Glednes of Callas hits the front.
Yeah, I love a team that has half of their riders on a gravel bike and half of their riders on a road bike. It's like running a dehumidifier and a humidifier in the same room at the same time. You kind of neutralize each other there. That's going to be having Zeldness that we're looking at, the Callas rider. They're one of the teams that comes in, I would say, safe to move into the next season here. This is a team that's been dominant as we look at Mark Bruce, again, the rider out of the United Kingdom. So, Matt, he's softening up this group right now, tenderizing the field here for Next.
He is as well. I mean, he's on a road bike too, so that's really interesting. Stretching these riders out, making the riders on gravel bikes on this section, including a couple of his teammates, go on the back foot basically. But PO Auto Ceramics beams have those 23 points there. Kirchmeier in second with 12, so good start by PO Auto. World of Elite Zwifters with 10. Then we have Movistar, Callas, Team Swedish Zwifters, Beast Mode, Canyon, Toyota, and D-Pack Elite. Another one of those several teams fighting for survival in the ZRL as Bruce continues to make hay out in front. His lead now extending on that road bike as we head ever nearer to the climb for the second time. 4.2 seconds now. So really interesting tactics here by the team that have that 100% record, Dave.
Matt, this is the first time that we've shown a graphic all season long showing the top 10 teams and points where Next was not included. They right now have 1 point. Now, any other team, and I would expect the panic bells would be ringing, but not in this case. Next has shown us their ability to put riders into the top 10 at the finale, week in, week out. They have every reason to believe in themselves for the end of this race. And again, pride comes into play, right? Canyon clearly looking to have their day in this season of the ZRL. I have a feeling that Next is saving something a little bit special for the finale out here today.
It certainly is. Well, a few more riders, Dave, have been dropped just through that sprint. A couple of riders got tailed off. We've actually got only 36 riders in the front group now. And Bruce has 3 other teammates in that group just behind. And here is that chasing pack. Now 10 seconds adrift. So really, we saw this earlier on. We saw, wasn't Kristin Kochinski. It was, of course, the rider that finished in second place. Shalau tried to go clear on the flat and did a very, very good job and opened up a big lead, but it capitulated completely on the climb. But really interesting, they're the only big team here that have clearly decided half of the team to ride on road bikes, half to ride on gravel bikes. But look at the advantage that he's managing to pull out. 13 seconds now. This is very, very interesting indeed, Dave.
I have to go back to that Hannah Walker comment, Matt. What a tremendous job Hannah has done all season long. And noting confidence is such a big part of winning races. You have to learn how to win in this sport. Some riders with their ability, maybe it comes easy at first, but the higher the level of racing, the harder and harder it gets to do. And certainly, I like the mindset of Canyon. They completely committed to the gravel bike, which I think, Matt, after the racing that we've watched so far today, to me, if I'm a team director, I'm putting my team on gravel bikes. I don't know what your choice would be out there, but it seems to me like that was the right call.
I would agree, and based on what I've seen so far, and of course there's going to be potentially some different permutations play out here in the men's race. But what I've seen so far in this race, and how many riders have managed to stay in this front group on gravel bikes, there is the majority in this front group on gravel. Although Bruce is doing a very, very impressive ride, using the advantage that the road bike gives him, increases or decreases, should I say, the rolling resistance, or in fact, his rolling resistance is the same. It's a disadvantage to be on a gravel bike, basically, on this particular section of road. But 21 seconds for the British rider now, kicking out just under 6 or just under 5 watts a kilo, as the bunch behind almost waiting for what's to come. 4 watts a kilo here for this group, and it won't be long before they actually go over these bridges and turn left for the penultimate time on to the climb of the Temple Climb. Remember, the stats, 2.5 kilometers, all on dirt gravel, 3.6% gradient, maxing out at 10. But it's the unevenness of the gradient that makes it such a difficult proposition, isn't it, Dave? You've got the downhill sections, the flat, and then brutally steep sections. So hard to get the rhythm right.
Yeah, finding a rhythm is ridiculously hard, that's for sure. So noting that Canyon has got all 5 riders in this selection, and what a selection has been to get to this point. Wahoo Lecole has got 4 riders up in this group. They're having a tremendous ride. Jan Steinman is there. Hal Davies is there. But this is the team to beat, no doubt about it. We're back with the British rider, Mark Bruce here. Just one of the components that's come together. This was a community team only 1 season ago. As talk about a debutante performance out here, as they have been absolutely dominant, and they're certainly looking to come on strong at the finale Canyon, looking to get out in front of it out here today. And Matt, I do like the fact that they've got 5 riders in this group. They've got some cards to play here, but right now Mark Bruce is playing the ace card here as he opens up a huge gap. This is 28 seconds now as he channels his inner Julia Schalau or Kristin Kochinski. I love the courage. Matt, you said it in the earlier race. Fortune favors the brave. On a course like this, that's true more than ever.
Yeah, it is absolutely fascinating stuff. And I think what racing on the gravel does, apart from gives the riders a real food for thought in terms of what bike to choose, what it opens up is another reason to attack it. It's provided us with the catalyst for some of the most aggressive racing I've seen, because if you are going to ride on a road bike or a gravel bike, to make best advantage or to make hay while the sun shines, you have to go on the offensive. There's no point in just sitting at a steady pace and somebody sitting in your slipstream. You really have to be aggressive. And that's what I like about this bike choice situation. It really is fascinating. Different teams employing different tactics, but the gap now starting to drop a little bit. Bruce still riding well, 6.6 watts a kilo. That is going to hurt, that's for sure. But the gap has come down now to 20 seconds and some big riders moving up the front. Vujasan, Recknauer, Van Diemen, Ryan Larson, Hugh Davis, Brian Duffy Jr., all to the fore.
Boy, it's not going to be long until that check engine light starts flashing up there for Mark Bruce. No doubt about it, as this gap is coming down quickly. There's a big surge going on. That's David Talbot there making his move. Lionel Viasen, Pim Van Diemen. These are big names, no doubt about it. But I do think the advantage here is Bike Racing 101, Matt Stevens. To tell you the truth, when you put every other team on the back foot, and they've had him chasing for over 5K out here, Mark Bruce, again, tenderizing this field for his teammates in the finale. So even though I don't think this is a race-winning move for Bruce, it's actually setting the table for one of his teammates to lick his plate clean. As a matter of fact, if Next doesn't put 3 riders in the top 10 at the finish, I'll be a little surprised.
Yeah, look at how many steamrollers. I've never seen so many steamrollers in one small place, but they're dropping them on this steep section here, just making the dropping of the steamroller basically gives you the equivalent sensations in terms of roller resistance as riding a road bike on tarmac. So basically it equals things out. So Paradigms is now on the front, trying to shut this gap down, but look at the selection that's been made. Look at the riders that are falling away from this group. We only started at the bottom of the climb with 35 riders in this group, but Van Diemen now accelerating clear. Still a long way to go to the top of this climb as the road rears up again. There's some really steep sections here, but Bruce has now been caught by Van Diemen.
Sorry about that, Matt. Yeah, they just brought Bruce back into the fold here. So Pim van Diemen is going to look to do some damage out here as we go in cam with Pim. And you get a good feel. I mean, he's on gravel right now, making around 430 watts, heart rate surprisingly low. Watching Shalau sitting up over 200 beats per minute for over 10 minutes was absolutely incredible. This is a much more comfortable 167 right now for the Pim van Diemen. Again, now, what Mark Bruce did, now you can say Movistar is doing. Movistar comes into this last race of the season with 77 points sitting in fourth. It's going to take a lot to overcome BZR and end up on our final podium. I have a feeling they're racing for some glory out here today and getting a win on the day here on the Countryside Tour course. What a brilliant way to wrap up this season. Going to the Makuri Islands was a fantastic choice by our race director, Charlie Eisendorf.
It certainly was. It's one of my favourite courses just to ride, but to race has been a really interesting proposition. But Van Diemen, despite that big effort, this select group of riders are now bringing him back in here. Recknauer is riding on a gravel bike, has got back onto the wheel of the rider in blue from Movistar. We know how strong Recknauer is. They're looking like they're a team, unfortunately, that is going to be relegated, but they're going to go out with all guns blazing, that is for sure, as we head towards the last 500 meters of this climb for the second time. Next time up this climb, remember, will be at the finish line. But Recknauer now out of the saddle, but has been passed very quickly by Lionel Vujasan, who moves to the front.
Yeah, Pim van Diemen, now the rider in that light blue jersey, is our leader. Then you've got Lionel Vujasan here for the Canyon team. Again, Canyon had the full team. The entire squad was in that front group, and now they're going to start looking to do some damage as we come up on 16 kilometers to go. Matt, this is the business end, and now we start moving around the Machiavellian chess match. These pieces become more and more critical.
Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. So Van Diemen looks like he's going to take maximum points on the line, or is he? Just about takes it from Russell and Vujasan there. Knudsen, but that's a big split. Lots of riders tailed off. We'll look at the damage in a moment, but Van Diemen confirmation, he takes the points. Second time through the mystical tree. Vujasan in second. Russell there for Wahoo Lacole in third. Brian Duffy Jr., the American for Next Esports, is there in fourth place. But a little bit of a... As we just take a bit of a breath, Dave, and descend down the other side, we're getting some information in from Zwift headquarters. If you are racing tomorrow in the ZR Rule, you might want to buy this particular bike. This is the Canyon Grail, what Kristin Kochinski was on. Level 23, that's what you've got to be on, and you need 355,000 drops to buy that one. So head to the drop shop if you want to do well on this circuit and get yourself a shiny gravel bike. So, yes. That's nearly 1/3 of a million drops you need for that shiny bike, but it's the bike that clearly can make the difference. Although, Dave, you do need a big heart and some very good legs indeed. Dave, talk us through the replay.
Can I borrow 400,000 drops?
I'll do you a loan, Dave. I'll loan you some at a decent interest rate.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see people selling them drops on eBay now, as that's going to become a very popular bike, that's for sure. That's a replay that we were just looking at Pim van Diemen picking up the 5 points. The last point on offer, so they've doubled their points out here. Next, going from 1 point to 2. How do you eat an elephant? Well, I guess it's one small bite and then another small bite and then a giant bite is what I'm expecting from the Next Enshored team here. We're going to reset now. This might be the final time, to tell you the truth, as that's going to be Eric Levinson moving to the front, a rider who would certainly like to make his mark out here. But let's update the points for you right now as it stands. And this is after that last KOM. PO Auto, they're back, baby. 23 points for PO Auto Ceramics. They're going to be, again, they were one of the bubble teams that came in, and I think they're going to be really happy with how they're heading into the finale here. It's starting to look good. Movistar with 13, Kirkmeyer with 12, Zwift World Elite Zwifters at 10 points, and you can see Callis with 8, Canyon with 8, and so Canyon, Matt, not that much further ahead right now than Next. Actually, that's basically a wash. Next with 2 points right now, so only 6 point difference. The difference between first and second on the day is different than that. And that's at the finish line, where there's 50 points for the winner, 40 points for second, and 35 for third. It tails off quite a bit after that.
It certainly does. Well, all those points down to the 30th place. There are points for 30th place to the line, and for the teams that you talked about at the top of the show, which is 6 or 7 teams, could it up if they get it wrong, could drop tonight. So there's a lot at stake further down the field. So there'll be a fight for every single point within the top 30. And we only, interestingly, Dave, have 29 riders in this front group. So Takado Ikeda of the Zwift Warriors is the last rider in this group at the moment. And then we have Simon Betts on his own at 34 seconds as we look at Stefan Kirkmaier, the Austrian. He is the rider that set this team up. He is in this front group, looking good as the road just starts to drop a little bit. It won't be very long before we head past the pens and go through the start-finish area. But there's now under 1 lap to go and one more ascent of the dirt road of the Temple Climb, finishing this season in the centre of the mystical tree. And if you have just joined us, well, I tell you what, you've missed a treat. If you missed the women's race, you can watch it again. I won't give anything away, but it was an amazing, amazing race. And we have now 12.6 kilometres to go of the men's race, which is the final round of the Zwift Racing League. This is round 6. We are in Makuri Islands doing the countryside tour, and we have only 29 riders, Dave, left in the mix.
I expect that women's race will have the greatest replay rate that we've ever seen when word of mouth spreads about that. Matt, I want to go back quickly while we have a moment here at 12.2K to go in our final race of the season to note that next season, starting in early 2022, there will be 15 teams in this league, the Premier Division. Now, those 15 teams will be made up of the top 12 teams that you see racing right now in the league, and then adding 3 community teams. They've got their playoffs coming up in the next couple of weeks. And Matt, I'm going to guess that a lot of those riders have decided that they're going to do exactly what you recommended and whip out their wallet and spend those 100,000 drops to buy that Canyon Grail bike. It looks like absolutely the bike of choice here. Zach Nair with his U.S. National Champions jersey hanging up on the wall. Certainly a point of pride. That would motivate any rider.
Of course it would. Definitely very nice indeed. Looking pretty good. Zach Nair, just a reminder, he is on a gravel bike. That's what he's opted for. So him and Bruce Duffy from that squad have opted for gravel. Mark Bruce, who attacked earlier on and opened up that massive lead on the climb, he was on a road bike. And that really did give us an insight into how much of a benefit the road bike is on the tarmac. But then flick to the gravel, and then it's a completely different story, that is for sure. But Zach Nair, as you said, Dave, buoyed by that jersey. And again, anytime you're in a little bit of difficulty, sometimes you just got to look to your right, look at that jersey, and it can just motivate you, just remind you of how good. You can quite often find a couple more little percentage points when you have something to really, really motivate you. But that is framed, and he's a very, very proud man indeed. But 10.7 kilometres to go. Clearly, Dave, now looking at the watts per kilo for these guys, it's just this is the calm before the storm. This is an assessment of who's in this group, who's got what particular bikes, because this is going to kick off big time on the final time up this climb as we look at the garage of Ben Russell, who's on a gravel bike for Wahoo Lacole.
How patient Next has been today. That's a real virtue, not only in life, but certainly in this sport at this level. Ben Russell, again, is the Wahoo Lacole rider. They've still got 4 in this group. They're having an outstanding ride here today. And certainly, you know, Matt, I think in the annals of history, when we look back on the ZRL, we're not going to talk a lot about who was 5th place or 6th place, but winning today on this course, you can put a feather in your cap with that one. I think there's a lot of riders like Fabian Devola there, the Belgian rider. Here's Daniel Jamrozic of Restart attacking now. That's a good look at a couple of the green jerseys that we've got, because that's going to be Mark Bruce going up and over the top now. So here we go. It's getting frenetic up at the front. We go inside of 10K. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been waiting all season to say it. It is now on like Donkey Kong. Matt, here we go. The last 10K of the season, and there's a lot to win and lose out here.
There certainly is. Well, I was waiting for that one, Dave, and you rolled it in just at the right time. We're in single digits, 9.7 Ks to go, 33.6 kilometres under the virtual wheels here on the countryside tour of Makuri Islands. These riders, once they've finished, exhausted in the centre of the mystical tree, will have covered 43.28 kilometres. And the team leading overall so far this season with a 100% record are Next Esports. Second, Canyon Esports with 90 points. Third, BZR Sports Solid. and 4th heading into the final round. Movistar E-Team's been a solid season by them. Most of the riders in this group, I say most, bar one or two, appear, from what we can see, to be riding on gravel bikes as we look at Steinmann. Another one of, at least three riders in this front group from Wahoo Lacol who's riding on a gravel bike. There's a very nice insight into the pain cave of Jan Steinmann there. Nice headband too.
Yeah, thanks to our colleagues Naomi and Simon, we're certainly learning that it seems to me, Matt, unofficially, that more than half of the riders out here, I'd even say 3/4 of the riders look like they've started on gravel bikes today. I'd love to know. We'll have to go back and do some research to see exactly what those numbers were percentage-wise, but I think most riders agreeing with us that that was the choice, and you can see how it's really hotting up here now. There's going to be some splits happening, Matt. The very active moment.
Yep, sorry, Dave. Very, very active indeed. Just moving towards. They just want to make sure that nobody moves off the front as we look at Tom Thrall there. Thrall just rolling through to the front, just turning an absolutely huge gear on the gravel bike. There is Thrall, a winner previously this season. A real classy rider. Lovely to speak to as well. Really interesting when I spoke to him a couple of weeks back. I said, why? What's the reason you've been so successful? He says, because we do our recons. We really think, we talk a lot, we communicate, and we know the nuances of all of these courses. We just keep on riding, and we're one big collective, that is for sure. Because they're looking at the jerseys there, Bruce is clear, but they have all of their riders again in this front group. I can confirm every single rider from Next Esports is in this front group. Thrall, Hug, Mayer, Bruce, and Duffy.
Wow. So, yeah, and right now they're sitting on a grand total of 2 points. Now, remember this moment at inside of 8K to go. If they win this race, they basically started from ground zero at this point, hardly contesting any of our KOMs or our sprints. It's all going to come down to the finale. Stefan Kirkmeyer here is in that yellow and black jersey. Certainly one of the riders a lot of folks are going to be looking for on this final climb, but it looks like Paul Odlund, the irrepressible New Zealander. Man, this guy punches above his weight. And Paul Odlund now for World Elite Zwifters, presented by Oral 7, taking it to him. Teppo Lorio is there, another one of our favorites out of Finland.
Yeah, good. Levenshaw's coming across the gap. The American riding for Saris, straight over the top. Bruce again, the advantage. Clearly, they want somebody to cause a little bit of disruption. Most of the team on gravel bikes, but Bruce dominating this particular fast flat section on that road bike. And this is this lead group. Well, not the lead group, it is the surviving group. Only 29 riders heading towards the finish here. The rider at the back now, Huel Davis of Wahoo Lacol, as the massed ranks of Canyon Esports move up as well. Nando Vujasan has been their most aggressive rider, but a rider has been very, very quiet indeed is Ollie Jones. But we understand the whole of the Canyon Esports team have opted for the gravel bikes as we head closer towards the countryside sprint. Remember, lots of points on offer here. 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Who's going to open things up first? It comes in around 800 meters time. Paradanes, Dave, on the front.
Yeah, and I'm expecting Pio Otto to do what they've been doing all day so far, and that's going to be, there's Michael Knudsen again, the Danish rider. Watch out, there's a couple very similar jerseys at that restart right next to him, but Canyon now making their surge, and here comes Next, as that is a launched rocket right now going off of the front mat. So Next, it's going to be Mark Bruce, but can he hold on? I don't think so. He's going to get swarmed here at the line, and it's going to be an outstanding Wahoo Lacol ride today, as they're going to pick up top points here for Teppo Lorio, the Finnish rider on Wahoo Lacol. And they got Jan Steinmann up into the top 5 as well, Matt.
Yeah, good ride by them. Lorio from Kirkmeyer, who's been riding very strongly. They Mel, Bruce, Steinmann, Jones. First appearance by the Zwift Academy winner there in the past. Paradanes overhauled, managing to hold on for 7th. And then Muller of Canyon there in 8th place. So 6 kilometres, under 6 kilometres, should I say, to the finish now. 37.4 under the wheels as we move through this green, beautiful, verdant countryside. But we have one of the most difficult, technically challenging climbs of the whole of the ZRL to come. 552 metres in total, and those last few metres to the centre of the mystical tree will be done on the temple climb. Let's have a little cheeky look at the last sprint again. That is our final intermediate sprint. All the points out on the road to be grabbed by the teams are now done. And that really was, Dave, A superb sprint by Tippolorio, using the featherweight power-up to a pretty good effect there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a team with a tremendous amount of experience, and they're coming on strong on with their women's team as well. When you talk about Wahoo Lecole, this is the table as it stands right now. P.O. Auto Ceramics, they didn't pick up any points in that last sprint, but they're still on top with 23. Kirkmeyer moving up with 20 points right now. Movistar in with 19. WLC, Wahoo Lecole with 16. Canyon, 12. And then you can see now that Next at 7. So that gap has come down just a little bit. But with the lion's share the points at the finish, Matt, it really has become a race for the finish line at this point. No team has an outstanding advantage, although I will say that P.O. Auto's ceramic speed is just about to punch their ticket to be back for next season, as they were tied for 12th. Only 12 teams are going to advance into the next season. It means a lot to these squads, and it looks like P.O. Auto is going to have done enough to be able to advance.
It certainly does. Well, they've certainly scored a lot of points. It was a good move. Shrewd of them to go for the early points. As we look at the face of Tippolorio, drenched with sweat, you can just see his jersey there, that rather fetching Wahoo Lecole jersey, billowing with the breeze, trying to keep himself nice and cool. Tippolorio of Finland, 31 ride-ons there. We can confirm is riding on a gravel bike. And there are 4 riders from Wahoo Lecole in this front group. We got Hewell Davis of Wales, Tippolorio, who is on your screen right now, Jan Steinman and Ben Russell. So 4 riders from Wahoo Lecole who are having a very good night indeed so far. 4.6 Ks to go. Dave, in only 2 kilometres time, they will swing left off the tarmac, back on to the gravel, onto the dirt roads for the final time, as Tippolorio gives us a little bit of a smile there, despite tapping out just under 5 watts a kilo.
I'd have to call Teppo the people's champion of this season, without any doubt. This guy's picked up a tremendous number of fans, and for a good reason. He's a great spirit, that's for sure. And he must be working with a stylist, Matt. There's no question that he doesn't just show up like this. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and we got the finish rider right now on the front here, opening up a small gap. Lionel Viassen right there, Stefan Kirkmeyer, David Talbot, Eric Levinson. These are the big names. Pim van Diemen, Nicky Hoog, the Swiss rider, who certainly could be their man today, Matt. When you look at Next, start looking at the short list of the riders that could actually win the day. Not necessarily going to win the race for their team, but certainly that's 50 points to put in the bank, and that is a significant step forward in that goal. Back to you, Matt, as we pick the guys up at 4K to go. This is the finale.
Indeed, Reckner and Kirkmeyer just roll through to the front there. Both of those riders from the Kirkmeyer E-Racing team, they will be moving down next season, but I tell you what, it won't be without a fight, as they just start to knock the pace off a little bit. Riders on the front putting out that little bit more power as we look at Nicky Hoog, the Swiss rider. We know how strong he is. We can confirm he as well is on a gravel bike. So it looks as if only one of Next Esports, powered by Enshored, has opted for a road bike. And that was the British rider, Mark Bruce. But Hoog has been quiet so far. And that is a first look today, because we always get a glimpse every single week of that immaculate Formula One style pain cave, which looks like you could have an operation in there without any questions at all. Looks exceptionally sterile. Maybe he's on a space station, who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but certainly when you look at that, F1 certainly sounds appropriate. And Nicky, well, very Swiss, right? There's not a germ within 1,000 miles of Nicky Hoog right now. And as I was saying, this is a guy to watch in the finale. He looks like he's well positioned to have an outstanding ride here. Matt, let's go back very quickly. You were talking about the stats of this last 2.5K out here. Now, if you do have a steamroller, that's going to be huge if you're on a road bike. It's a 30-second reprieve out there. And Matt, what can we figure? 4.5, 5 minutes on the climb, the last 2.5K?
Yeah. It's about a 4.5-minute effort. Last time that might be ever so slightly quicker. But and look at this, is one of the longest races. I think this is the second longest race of the whole season. They're going to be over an hour, so 56 minutes and counting. It's well over an hour for the women. So this is hurting. This is an endurance type event. It really is. So yeah, we're looking at around 4 minutes of effort. But as you said, if you do have a steamroller, you're going to want to just bide your time when you're using it, because the vast majority of riders are going to have gravel bikes on this section. But what that will do, that will give you a little bit of an advantage. Although if you've got a featherweight, that will give you an advantage too. So you'll be hoping for a steamroller without a shadow of a doubt. But it's because this climb is so textured, there's flat sections, even a downhill and some very steep sections, knowing when to use it is going to be quite a challenge. It really, really is. But here we are, 2.6 Ks to go, Dave. We're onto the dirt, onto the gravel for the final time. A load of ride-ons are being used. Please get involved in the comments. Open up that app, the companion app, and give these riders some encouragement, because this is the Temple Climb for the final time. And this is the final race of the season. Dave, 2.4 Ks to go, and some of the finest riders in the ZRL battling it out for the win.
At this point now, Next is the only team that has 5 riders. And if it was 5 jalopies, I would say big deal, but it's 5 Ferraris that they've got in that garage. And certainly now Next is going to look to make a statement and win all races of this season. And there's some riders that are certainly going to look to upset that apple cart, no doubt about it. This is your chance. We have now engaged in the final battle here for this season. David Talbot to the front, Pim van Diemen. They're certainly now just waiting for the barrage that is certainly coming from the Next team. Canyon also well positioned right now. Wahoo Lacole would certainly like to make a run at this one, and there they go. Jan Steinman to the front, Matt.
Eric Levinson is now moving up as well. Levinson drops a featherweight power up as well on this. It's a slightly, well, it's kicking up now, so good timing there. 15 seconds at 10% less weight. But look who's moving to the front with one of the most unusual, revelatory hairstyles in esports, and that is Lionel Villasan moving to the front. He's been at the front virtually every single time up this hill. 1.7 Ks to go. This is a little flat section before it kicks up again. This group really starting to thin out, but because everybody primarily is on a gravel bike, there's far more of a balance here. But look at the numbers in the green jersey there. So many riders up near the head of affairs for Next Esports. As we look at Villasan out of the saddle, Dave, 1,600 meters to go now. Still anybody's race here.
Yeah, and look at this. It's like spring is coming. It's getting greener and greener up near the front of the race. And this is where every man, it's all hands on deck at this point. There's your leader, David Talbot, certainly looking to ride out of his skin in this last 15, make it 1,400 meters. But Van Diemen is there. He knows how to win at this level. Lionel Villasan is looking for the biggest win of his esports career. This is a course that suits Villasan better than anything we've seen up till this point. But here comes Next. The cavalry has mounted up as Brian Duffy Jr. making a charge. Mateus de Roos is there as well. Matt, this is it. We are rapidly coming up on 1K to go here.
We certainly are. Van Diemen still on the front there. It's just trying to break the will of everybody else, just making this a long, drawn-out bit of suffering. 1.2 Ks to go. The road kicks up again. It swings round to the left, peaks at 8%. It levels out again. So hard to get the rhythm right, but Van Diemen is firing on all cylinders here. For your son in third place, Brian Duffy Jr. has got the Dutchman in his crosshairs and goes straight by him now with 1.1 Ks to go. That is the Flamme Rouge. Dave, 1K to go. Van Diemen, Duffy, Vujasan, Thrall, Jamrozic, Kirkman, Nicky Hoog also in the mix. Akida as well coming up in 10th place.
Here comes Thomas Thrall as well. The Canadian could certainly take out a monster win to make it 2 for the season. Here comes Next. So Next on the front, you can see Canyon is there. This is going to be interesting, and up and over the top. Is this going to be Stefan Kirkmeyer? It is. Stefan Kirkmeyer now making a charge here. Kirkmeyer's got a couple of riders as they make a late race bid to fight for their lives in the league. This is it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to downtown Payne City as we go inside of 650 meters to go.
Well, Jamrozic, we'll look a little bit further down the mountain, or down the road, shall I say, but it is Jamrozic on the front. Wreck now. Jamrozic has gone clear on the front from Restart Racing, and he's got the steamroller. That is the one you want, but still 500 meters to go. This is where the road kicks up again. Cunningham also there. That was who we saw before, but look at that 10% there by Jamrozic, but he's been over to take. Brian Duffy Jr. comes round on the left-hand side, Dave.
This could be it. This man is a human wattage cottage, but again, over the top, it looks like it's going to be, wow, that's going to be Thrall, isn't it? That's Thomas Thrall.
It is.
Next is going to look to go 2 riders into the top 3. Can they do it, Matt? We're down to 200 meters to go.
Thrall lead. De Roos over the top for the Belgians. BZR take the lead. It's the flat section out to the finish, but De Roos looks like it's going to take this on the line. De Roos takes it for BZR. What a win that was. BZR Sports Solid take the second win of the season. He bangs his bars with delight. De Roos of Belgium takes the win ahead of Canada's Thomas Thrall for Next Esports, powered by Enshored. And rounding out the podium, Lionel Vujasan of Canyon Esports. But Dave, look at what it means to Matthias De Roos. What a win atop the climb here in the center of the mystical tree.
And Matt, Next puts 3 riders into the top 10 today. Next doing what Next does. So that ought to be enough for them. Wow. Are you not entertained? As Matthias De Roos and Kristin Kochinski show you the exuberance of what it means to win in the ZRL. What a beautiful, beautiful moment we saw 2 times today. This goes down, Matt, as the greatest day of racing we've seen in ZRL history. I absolutely love Countryside Tour, Makuri Islands. We got to come back here next season.
I tell you what, Dave, I'm sure we will. I'm sure there will be notes at Zwift headquarters, lots of scribbling down of how wonderful it's been over the past season. But yeah, the Countryside Tour, Makuri Islands, what a race it delivered across both men's and women's events. And that is the final race of the season, done and dusted. That was round 6. Let's have a look at the results. We'll get confirmation of the win by Matthias De Roos. Actually, before we get to the results, Dave, let's have a little look at the slow motion replay of the final few meters into the center of the mystical tree.
Yeah, this was the moment, Matt, when I thought Thomas Thrall might have a chance to take out the win here for Next. At the end of the day, it all comes out in the wash, but we had multiple riders in with the shot. That's Matthias De Roos in that classic Belgian blue coming up and over the top, and how sweet this one is as he just gets the better of the Canadian Thrall at the finish line. What a way to wrap up the season. It's Lionel Vujasan, another podium for the irrepressible Belgian rider.
And it's that perfect timing as well, the way he used that power up as well, just at the right moment. Well, there is confirmation of the finish line points. Matthias De Roos of BZR Sports Solid takes the win ahead of Thomas Thrall of Next Esports. Lionel Vujasan consistent as ever in 3rd. Brian Duffy Jr. 4th. Pim van Diemen, the first home for Movistar. Michael Knudsen, good ride by him for PO Auto Ceramics B. Nicky Hood making the 3rd rider in the top 10 for a dominant Next Esports. Kirk Mayer there in 8th. Zach Nair again of Next in 9th. And then Jan Brosik in 10th. And there is the rest of the top 20. What an absolutely superb race that was. But to dissect the race and to have a look at, we will have a look at the team points on the night, as we look at our top 30 finishers. And there we go. Well, there we go. Making a 100% record. 6 wins from 6. What a season for Next Esports. 2nd, Canyon. 3rd, BZR. 4th, Movistar. 5th, Kirkmere. Wahula Cole also up there in 6th. P Auto Ceramic Speed 7th. Saris Restart. And then the Zwift Warriors cycling team there with 20 points. Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure commentating alongside you. Lots to talk about in the studio. And then, of course, we'll see the overall winners. We know who they are, but also crucially the teams that are going to be moving down back to the community. But what a finale it was. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for listening. But let's head back to the studio because, as I said, there are lots to talk about. Over to you, Mark and Hannah.
Again, an amazing race and fantastic use of those power-ups there. A few more athletes following in the footsteps of Kristin with the use of the gravel bike there. I mean, the bit that was most interesting to me was that Next weren't giving up, considering that they basically, it was their series to lose, but they were going after every point.
Yeah, they were, but at one point they were further down in the standings in the points. They were roughly around 8th overall. They were putting everything in to that finish. It all came down to that finish, and for them to be overhauled in the team overall standings come the end of the season, they'd have had to have finished with 10 teams between them and Canyon Esports. And I think at one point going into that final sprint, there was only 3 teams between them, so they knew that they had Canyon Esports really under wraps, and they knew that if they could score and get as many riders into the high scoring points at the finish line, that they would have it wrapped up. And to have a 100% win rate on the team standings on the night to give them full marks come the end of the season, I mean, it's tremendous to see.
Well, talking of which, we have the full overall team standings ready to talk through. So Next Esport taking 6 for 6, 120 points overall. Canyon Esports in second with 109. BZR Sports Solid with 103. Mobistar E-Team with 92. And Team Saris in fifth with 86. And Wahoo Lacole with 79. And then, yeah, we got the World Elite Zwifters with 70 points in seventh. Restart Racing moving up to 8th place with 62 points, joint with Team Swedish Zwifters, also in 69. Now, the interesting bit is those that are going to get relegated. Now, it's anything after 12, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, the last 7 teams are going to be relegated down to the community division. So we'll be saying goodbye to Deepak Elite, Zwift Warriors Cycling, Toyota Cryo RDT, Kirkmire E-Racing Team, who had a fantastic night of racing tonight, I must add. Fusion ECT in 17th, Draft in 18th, and Finesse Sports in 19th. They haven't been competing in the last few rounds, but Kirkmire, they gave it a good shot, didn't they, to try and make sure that they stayed in the league. Unfortunately, not to be. 7 teams will be relegated, and excitingly, we'll see another 7 teams come up from the community division into the Premier Division in January for the next season.
Very exciting. Now, there was obviously a lot of talk about the bikes tonight, and we saw men more of the men using the gravel bike. But interestingly, the winner of this race was actually on a road bike. And we can see a replay of the finish coming up here.
Yeah, this was Duffy, Brian Duffy Jr., who sort of started to go for a long one with around 150 metres to go, and with the speed that he was overtaken by the Canadian Tom Thrall, it was looking highly likely that he was going to take the victory. And here comes the young mighty Belgian, as you say, on the road bike. Into the final sort of 75 metres with the steamroller, timed it to perfection. And you saw the elation on his face, in his garage, in his pain cave. That's how much it means to him. And as Dave and Matt were saying in the commentary, people don't remember who was 5th or 7th or 12th on the night, but such a huge victory, the first summit finish in the ZRL this season. Huge win for Matthias de Roos there.
Brilliant. Well, I believe we also have 2 of the athletes from the winning team. Not quite yet, but we do have Ashley Mormon-Passio, who I believe you've spoken to, has set up a new cycling team, which we are going to see now.
Ashley, thanks for joining us. First up, some very exciting news from the Rocacorba HQ.
Yeah, we're very excited to launch a new project, Rocacorba Collective, today. And the whole idea of the Rocacorba Collective is to create a fun and safe space for women to come together, train together, race together, and just hope to grow female participation in cycling. So we'll be having an esports team, community teams, weekly workouts, partner discounts, all sorts of benefits to be part of the Rocacorba Collective.
You've already been racing in the community league, in the community division, every Tuesday evening with your Rocacorba team. You've been participating too. How have you been getting on?
Everything's looking good to qualify for the playoffs. We have 1 more race left, and then we're all revved up to do our best in the playoffs and to hopefully win our playoffs and go through to the Premier League.
What are your thoughts of the prospect of being promoted to that Premier Division?
In the first league race, which was a team time trial, unfortunately we didn't get off to the best start because we only had 4 riders, and that definitely counts against you. So I think we're doing really great. We've won and come second and third and all sorts of great results in the league. So I'm feeling confident that when we put our strongest team together for the playoffs, I really believe that we stand a very good chance of winning and getting promoted to the Premier League. And of course, that's a big objective for us with the launch of Rocacorba Collective, so we have extra motivation.
It must be incredibly special for you as well, Ashley, because you get to race in the world champion rainbow bands?
Yeah, it's been really great. I'm having the opportunity to actually race and train in the rainbow jersey. I mean, with a very full season, especially with the Olympic Games, I haven't really had the opportunity to be all that active in the virtual world. But now that the road season is done, last race for me was the Road World Championships. So I threw myself straight into the virtual world and racing on Zwift, and it's really cool to race in the rainbow jersey and really appreciate that achievement.
Your attributes as a rider from your road racing side really complement the e-racing side as well, don't they?
Actually, I've received quite a lot of criticism in a way for my style of riding, because I hate missing out on anything, so I'm always near the front or on the front and often wasting energy as a result. And so finally, that style of riding really suits esports, because it's short, it's intense, but you really need to be up there at the front, really watching every move, because if at any moment you fall off the bunch, it's really game over in the esports world. So finally, that character trait is definitely a strength in virtual cycling.
Well, brilliant to hear from Ashley Moorman-Passio there with her new cycling team, Rocker Corba Cycling Collective. Of course, she is the UCI Esports World Champion, so we're very excited to see that team coming very soon. But now I believe we do actually have the men. Here we have it. So 2 men from the Next team, the winning team. Hello, guys. How was the race?
Hey, guys. It's going great. That was a very, very hard race. Probably one of the hardest ones there's been in ZRL, so it was an amazing experience, though.
Now, talk us through the bike choice and how much stress that caused you before the day.
Yeah, Tom, you can talk
about
that.
That was a lot. That was a team decision starting almost 2 weeks. Actually, I'd say going back all the way to the beginning of the season, this was something on our minds, whether we do the bike swap, choose the gravel, or stick with the road. And honestly, for some of us, it was not even finalized until the last 30 minutes. But we knew that if the group could stay together, we had the finish power, so we wanted to be mostly on gravel bikes.
Do you think watching and seeing how the women's race beforehand played out sort of made your decision of your choice?
I can take that one, Tom. So, as Tom mentioned, these races in general are always incredibly stressful. You add on this complexity, which is very unique. I mean, in 4 seasons of the Premier League, there hasn't been a situation where you had to make bike choices beyond just marginal differences in wheels. So definitely added a lot of stress. I would say once we kind of made the decision, I think we just kind of locked into it, because I think the most important thing is being confident in your selection. So personally, the women's race didn't influence me too much. It was interesting to see what they chose, but at that point I was committed and just wanted to believe in the selection I made and my abilities. So.
And a 100% win rate in the team standings across all 6 rounds during this season of the ZRL Premier Division. You must be incredibly delighted, but to have that consistency is so impressive, Tom.
Yeah, so honestly, it's all credit to our team. We really merged together mid-August with the intentions of coming into the season to win, and we weren't going to be settled or happy with anything else. And honestly, it was all about teamwork the whole way through. We practiced racing together, we learned strategy together, and we just stayed consistent to that and to our values all the way through the season, and it absolutely paid off for us. So it's not really credit to any one of us, it's really the entire team effort and all the support from Next powered by Enshored.
Brilliant. And Brian, talk me through the team decisions on the day. Do you have a director sportif back there yelling in your ear, or is it a joint decision? Are you talking amongst you during the race?
Yeah, well, the team's definitely talking amongst each other, but yeah, every race we have a DS, sometimes even multiple, depending on what the race is and what's required. But as Tom mentioned, this whole season wasn't just 5 or 10 guys, it was a whole team effort. In every one of these races, beyond just the DSs who are providing support, we've got guys across the whole team who are on the Discord shooting words of encouragement, or in the on the text, sending messages. So I think what really differentiates our team is just the camaraderie we have and just the vibe of trying to get better each and every day. You know, my goal is to be 1% better tomorrow than I was today, and I think everybody shares that common goal, and I think that's what's allowed us to be successful this past year.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations, guys, on an amazing season. Hopefully you've got time to put your legs up before next season starts. But yeah, we're now moving on from the pointy end to the less pointy end for the Community League. We've got the GCN All-Stars getting involved, and we're throwing now to a blog with Simon with the team for the last few races.
We are round 7. I was not expecting to race today. My excuse is I got a chesty cough, but hey, I can't resist. Our celebrity director sportif, James Barnes from Esports Zwift racing team, or Next Esport should I say, has given us a pre-race briefing, which is super exciting. But now we're on our own and we've actually got a pedal. We've got 45 seconds to go, chaps. So,
Right.
So yeah, the plan is for me to do the first turn at 350, then Alex, then Ollie, then Toby, James, and then Alan, you jump in when you can. We're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for dropping, everyone.
Sorry. Try and stick to 400, mate. Just ease up, boys. Sit in the wheels. Okay, 2K to go. We're down to 3, which is not good at all.
Keep going all the way to the finish line, all the way, come on. Up.
Come on, guys.
Well done, boys.
Well, tell you what, that didn't look textbook, but it's bloody good fun, isn't it? You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I really like team time trials. Not sure about real life, but on Zwift, that is awesome. We, predictably, as you might have come to expect from Team GCN, had a rocky ride. We lost Alan about 2 kilometres in. Toby did some mega turns up front, then pulled the pin as per the plan. And then we lost Hank's communications. And if you can imagine James Leslie Williams going rogue, you can imagine exactly what happened. So no idea where James is, but Ollie and Alex and myself survived with a 3-man TTT, which was good. Both of them super duper strong. So no idea about results, but big smile.
Well, brilliant work there, the GCN boys. Very sad not to join them for last week's race.
Are you?
Well, yeah, no, it is pretty
Seeing the
tough
pain.
racing. No, it is really fun, the camaraderie, getting involved together. They've done a superb job. Now, obviously, we had to brush over the women's racing earlier, so keen to step back into that and look into it. Obviously, at the front end of the race, we had that impressive attack from Kristin, but she was joined very closely by Julia.
Yeah, Julia Shallow of Beast Mode Powered by Rose. This duo have sort of become almost a force to be reckoned with. It's almost that rivalry has really started to build between the two of them. Equally, they've become almost, you know, best buddies in terms of being in a breakaway. We saw that 2 weeks ago out in Yorkshire, where they were quite prominent. Also 3 weeks ago over in Watopia. So for Shallow, Julia Shallow from Beast Mode Powered by Rose, you know, it's great to see the progression of the riders and the strength and depth of talent across the board in multiple teams.
Yeah, definitely. And interestingly, both on different bikes. Julia making use of the Steamroller Power-Up early on to bridge the gap. And then obviously we saw the men's winner on a road bike. So anyone racing tomorrow, who knows what bike you're going to choose. Now, obviously, we still yet to look through the overall team results for this series. So we have Heino Racing taking that overall win with 117 points. Canyon Esports in second with 109. Ionian Race Team in third with 108. And 2024 in fourth with 104. Team Swedish Swifters, 86 in fifth. And Beast Mode in sixth with 83. Toyota Cryo in 7th with 78, Team Saris in 8th with 77, Movistar E-Team in 9th with 76, and ATP Racing Venom in 10th with 64. And just finishing off the results, we've got Enshored Pedal Power with 61 points in 11th. Kirchmer, is that right? Yep, I've got that pronunciation correct, in 12th with 58. Agawatt in 13th with 33, and then Vision Racing in 14th. An exciting series.
It is, and we see two of those teams will be relegated down into the community division. Vision there, not taking to the start over the last few weeks. So the 12 teams we will see in January in the next season, and it has been a great season, as I say, across the board. The strength in depth of talent across multiple teams has been tremendous to see, and I think some riders who a year ago had only been racing on Zwift for a couple of months, and you see their progression a year on. It's just so impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Now, one athlete we've spoken about a lot tonight, obviously with that impressive attack early on and stuck with it, is Kristin. Congratulations on such an impressive win.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely unreal to win. I've just been working so hard towards it, and I was always so close, but yet so far. And I just went in today and being like, this is my course. This is my race. And every time I hit that climb, I just knew I'm going to hit it. And it was awesome. I had so much fun, and it was great. Yeah, kind of like, mind blowing.
It must be such elation, yeah. Kristin. Congratulations. I mean, that ride tonight was incredible, and across the board during this season, you've been incredible as well. But over 30 races in the Premier Division in the ZRL over the last year. It's your first victory. How did that taste?
Woo, I wish I had my champagne to open and spray around. I didn't plan ahead. So just imagine champagne, going around. I mean, that's how I felt. It was just all of the emotions. When I finally crossed, I knew there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm winning this. I'm doing it. And I could have backed off, but I was like, no, I'm going to smash it. Cause I went into the race with my mind being like, I call it Hulk smash. And I was like, I'm Hulk smashing tonight. And it worked. And I'm just so thrilled. Yeah, it was amazing. And I'm so excited also for the upcoming, world championships that will be next. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Well, talking of which, the UCI Esports World Championships does have a rather cheeky climb in it, which surely plays into your ballpark. Is that something that's on the radar and something you're really targeting?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to my coach, and he knows what things are on my my plan and everything. So yeah, that's the next big race, and then of course the next season of Premier League as well. So yeah. I'm very excited. It's been such a pleasure every season. The women are all so amazing, and I love the friendships that I've formed, and we're all kind of ready to attack on the races, but we all have a nice friendship behind the scenes and everything. So it's really nice. I love it.
And one very final question, because you were one of few riders on a gravel bike tonight. What swayed your decision to do that?
Oh my God, I was so nervous. I was like, did I make the wrong decision? Did I make the wrong decision? And I was like, when the race first started, I'm like, oh my God, I had to work a little harder. And I'm like, I started going in my head, and I relaxed a little bit. Our DS, Josh, was just like, stop surging. So once I found that I wouldn't get dropped, I got into a nice rhythm. And then once I hit that climb, I was like, bye-bye. So that kind of swayed me. The coach, my coach did say, if you want to win, you have to be on the gravel bike. And I put out a few, polls on Instagram, and everyone was like, road. And I was like, gravel. So yeah, it was awesome. I reconned that course for the past 2 weeks. So I kind of knew where it was going to pitch up and just attack at those parts. And yeah, I knew it was going to be a sufferfest, and I hope everyone enjoyed it because I did.
We certainly did.
Yeah, I love the confidence, and I was certainly excited about the race, and you certainly didn't fail to produce the goods there. So thanks ever so much and congratulations.
Thank you. I can't wait to watch it. You know, that's the best part is like when you finish racing it, then you watch it and you're like, yeah. So thank you so much for all that you guys do.
Enjoy the moment, Kristin. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, what a brilliant race.
Fantastic.
Well,
sad to leave it.
I know. And also, I must say, big congratulations to the GCN All-Stars. They're doing a superb job. And anyone else that is racing tomorrow, I hope you've got your bike choices sorted.
Just going to throw a big one up. People are not going to be able to sleep tonight over the huge decisions and the stress.
Well, yeah, that is it for season 1 of the 2021-22 ZRL. We are now going into season 2, which will be starting up in January, so you haven't got long to wait.
We haven't. How exciting. First up, the Continental Qualifiers Championships in just less than 2 weeks, which is incredibly exciting. And between then and season 2 is only Christmas, so can't wait.
Well, thank you ever so much to everyone for joining. We'll see you very soon.